More. 30 seconds. Said the gimbal is fault. On the transmitter. There's a transmitter there. Turn it on.
Thank you so much for your attention. Now, part of what we do at Sahara Group with regards to making a difference is what we have here today. So please, I would like a round of applause as I welcome you to Asharami Square 2025. It is no small feat that Asharami Square is here, and it is Sahara Group's intentionality in ensuring that we're aimed at promoting sustainability through effective media advocacy. Sustainability is something that is imbibed in our culture. It is something that every Saharian knows, and I will not be flogging this because we have the man in charge of communications and the man that tells us every single time that we have to represent the brand well. Please, a round of applause for our head Corporate Communications, Mr. Bethel Obioma, as he takes us through why we are here today.
Thank you, Mo. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Sustainability, so I expect some buzz in the room. Because for you to be here, that means you're sustainable. Because sustainable means the ability to maintain your health and be in existence, spirit, soul, and body, everything being intact. So why are we doing this? Why have we asked the media to be here today to join this conversation? It all started last year, but I'll give you a backstory. Now, the word sustainable, maybe from early 17th century, made its debut, and of course referring to the ability to maintain your health. Then by, I think, 1907 or thereabout, sustainability maybe had its first presence in the legal text. Then ultimately, sustainability will become something that is used to measure how you can be in charge of now without necessarily forfeiting what will happen with future generations. So what that means is you're creating that nexus that gives you the capacity to exist existentially here and now, and also make progress without forfeiting the future generations that are upcoming. So that means what we have is a synergy that allows you to excel right here and now, while still making sure that those guys who will be coming thereafter will also have that same opportunity to excel. Now, at Sahara Group, we saw that sustainability was fast becoming the buzz, and everyone was catching on to that buzz. And we said, who better to make a buzz than the media? But if you're making the wrong buzz, then what we'll then have is sustainability just being a cliche, and at the end of the day, impact is missing. Because without impact, sustainability will be like logic flying upside down. And we know that for us at Sahara Group, sustainability is at the core of what we do. Because not only are we here to do good, we are also here for the long haul. So there is that combination of doing good, being good, and also doing well, because the business has to do well, but the business to do good sustainably over a very long period. And a lot of times we're seeing how people are interpreting sustainability, and of course different themes that are coming out of sustainability. So you have things like energy transition, you have things like biodiversity, environmental stewardship, and all of that. And we're saying the people who are responsible for taking that message to the last mile, and by last mile I mean the general public, we want them to have that opportunity to know exactly what sustainability is, how to report it, when to report it, where to report it, to make sure that we have accurate reporting. Imagine where you have a situation where the media people in Nigeria and Africa have that word sustainability well understood and all the themes around it, the reporting will be excellent and people will have the right information. And then we can galvanize action that we need to make sure everyone's in tune towards achieving what sustainability means for us in Africa. Because we need everyone to be on board. There's this phrase we have in Sahara Group, we say, leaving no one behind. And the only way we can ensure that no one is left behind is when people understand exactly what sustainability is and what it means for Africa as a continent. So that's why we started this venture last year, and Asharami Square is in its second edition this year. And every year the plan will be to look at one aspect of sustainability, bring in experts to discuss, and have the media in attendance so that we can break down the issues and help the media with their all-important role of one, agenda setting, helping policy formulation, and also helping galvanizing action so that at the end of the day the populace is carried along. And when you tell everyone that for us to have energy transition, you need to do X, Y, Z, people understand. You have their buy-in, you have their support, and ultimately we'll have a generation going along the same direction. And sustainability is actually sustainability. Energy transition is just based on what Africa needs at this point in time. And at the end of the day, it's a win-win situation for everyone. So today I want to welcome gentlemen from the media. Thank you for joining us. This event is solely for you. We have gone over and beyond to get an excellent array of speakers to delve into the subject matter of gas and how gas can become the transforming power for Africa. So we expect at the end of the day, the reports from these events will be that which will help Nigeria or even Africa get to a point where the myth surrounding sustainability is unveiled and everyone comes to a perfect understanding of what sustainability is, so that ultimately, when you say sustainability in Africa, everyone knows what it means, and truly, we are leaving no one behind. So thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to Asharami Square 2.0, sustainability being unveiled, and everyone being right there in tune, leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Another round of applause, please. Now, like Bethel has said, we're speaking to pivotal issues. We're here to unveil the myth behind sustainability, to show that these issues are real and this is the breakdown. And we have amazing people here to have that conversation. This year's theme is harnessing gas for Africa's sustainable future. Harnessing gas for Africa's sustainable future. We're not just thinking Nigeria, we're not thinking local, we're thinking the whole continent, to say that how can gas become that next most sustainable thing? How do we then ensure that everybody is on board? We know what is required, we know what is needed, and we're very much aware. Thus, we leave no one behind. Well, to speak to sustainability of gas in Africa, we have no one other than our Director, Governance and Sustainability. A round of applause, please, for Ejiro Gray.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We're very honored to have you here in the room. We know that you all have busy schedules, but you've taken the time out to come and listen to us. And it's our belief that by the time the day is over, we're all leaving here more educated, more knowledgeable, and more convinced of what needs to be done for Africa's sustainable future. Please can my slides go? Just give us a minute, please, so my slides can be projected. Thank you. Yes. Okay, one of my favorite books, and I think it probably would be a favorite for a lot of people, Things Fall Apart, right, by the famous Chinua Achebe. And even right from an early age, I remember that one of the quotes from the book that stuck with me, and I for a long time I was quite curious about it and I kept reflecting on it, was the saying that until the lion learns how to write, every story of the hunt will glorify the hunter. How does this relate to what we're talking about today? If you think about the first time you heard the word sustainability or energy transition, if you think back from that time up to now, you will find that there's been a lot of momentum. There's everything that is talked about in the news, in the media, especially international media. It's always about sustainability this, sustainability that. So that even in our common everyday lingo now, we always talk about, oh, how sustainable is this? How sustainable is that? And why is that? Because the West know how to use the media to drive their narratives. They understand the power of communication. They understand the power the media holds, and they use it effectively, such that all of us around the world are then dancing to the tune of whatever they're preaching, whatever messages they're putting out there. Sometimes not so original, sometimes not so authentic, but nonetheless, they're very convincing and they do a really good job of that. And that is why there's so much focus on climate action, climate resilience, climate change. And I'd say pretty much because they've dealt with the other critical issues. They've pretty much dealt with governance issues. They've dealt with a lot of social issues. And so they can face environmental issues. And that's not to say that climate issues are not real. Of course they are. That's not to say that there's no threat to the continued existence of this planet. Of course there is, no matter what Donald Trump may choose to say, but we all know what's happening. We see the evidence every day that things are changing. And I feel like let's not be bogged down by the argument of what is the real cause, but rather let's address the fact that ready or not, things are changing and we need to be positioned to make a difference and to turn things around or to be able to at least deal with it. So, in the process of all the talk about climate action, climate change and all of that, there's been a lot of vilification of fossil fuels, gas, and all of that. It took a while for even the European Union to acknowledge gas as a transition fuel. And at Sahara Group, like Bethel said, we started to think, it's important that our own journalists as well, our own media, is pushing out the right narratives that will educate our populace, educate our people, and tell the real story of what is going on and what needs to be done. And we thought, how can we contribute to making this happen? Because in Nigeria, we're very good at talking about the problem. We're not very good at addressing, bringing up solutions. And we thought, how can we contribute to actually making this happen? And that was how Asharami Square was birthed. Last year, we talked about carbon emissions, what exactly about it, what is going on, and how does it affect us. And this year, we thought, let's talk about gas. I'm sure we all have heard of the decade of gas. At the turn of the decade, there was a lot of conversation about it, not just in Nigeria, but the continent over, about how we need to harness our resources, our gas resources, and use it to drive that transition and use it to drive sustainable development across the continent. Now this is 2025, so it's safe to say we're halfway through the decade of gas. The question then is, where are we on all the lofty plans, all the interesting things that we said we were going to do and have to be done by 2030? Next slide, please. So we live in an interesting world with all the superpowers competing for supremacy, different, unpredictable policies and tariffs and whatnot coming up every day. And we know one thing for sure, whether it's China fighting the USA or vice versa, or Russia or India, whatever the case may be, we know that there is no way there is no way the decisions they make, the things they do, will not affect Africa directly or indirectly. We're already seeing it. Reduced access to funding, reduced aid. We're not exactly top priority on the US foreign policy. China may be courting us in some ways, but we all know that we must also be careful in that regard so that we don't inadvertently fall into some sort of neo-colonialism in the name of trying to court the right parties for our development. So what does that tell us? We need to look inwards, and we need to do it fast. Now, one of the ways we can look inwards and find a way to insulate ourselves to some degree, I'm not sure we can do it entirely, but to some degree, against the shocks that are bound to come with all this, disruptive policies and unprecedented changes in direction, and all the global issues and all the geopolitical issues. So we look inwards and we say, what do we have? What can we leverage? And because this continent is actually blessed immensely with all kinds of resources, then you think, what are we doing with our gas? For so long, we haven't really optimized it. What can we do with it now? How can we use that to pivot and to also drive the development we so desperately need on this continent? Next slide, please. Now, the good thing is demand is rising, and demand will rise because there's been predictions of population growth in Africa by 2030, by 2050 as well. In fact, predictions say, forecast probably will double by 2050. And what's the main driver of this? Of course, higher birth rate. Even though there are arguments that fertility is actually reducing, but because we're blessed with such a youthful continent, so you find that women within childbearing age will still be on the increase because of that. And so our population is set to grow. There will be more rural-urban migration. All of those things will drive demand for energy. Now, you might argue, well, there's renewable energy coming up, and indeed there is. There's technology developing every day in that regard. But the magnitude of the problem, of the demand problem in Africa is such that I think the sky is actually large enough for both renewable energy and gas to thrive in order for us to achieve our objectives. So if you have about 600 million people without access to power, you can imagine what that means. We need everything we can muscle together, renewable energy, gas, everything to drive change and close that gap, and of course, drive energy security as well. So it's important that we're looking at gas as a resource for energy security, for economic empowerment, and of course for clean cooking. In a society where we're still relying very heavily on biomass, and we know the effect of that on the environment, and even on health, human health. So gas, no doubt, is somewhere we should really be looking at very closely and taking very seriously. And no matter the narrative being driven in other parts of the world, we must understand that this is a resource that we can take advantage of. We need to be selfish about our own development and our own growth as a continent. Next slide, please. But that said, the promise of gas could also be threatened by real-world barriers, and there are a number of them. But I think beyond, gas flaring and, a lot of other things, one of my major concerns is the infrastructure gap. In Nigeria, for instance, we have just about 7,000 kilometers of gas pipeline, despite the abundant reserves. So it still poses a limitation and a challenge to getting that gas across to where it is needed. And then, of course, the investment security issues. And then the dilemma of whether to focus on domestic use or the more lucrative export. And finding that balance is important. Next slide, please. But there is good news. We're still forging ahead. The Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano pipeline has crossed the Niger. So we're making progress. Countries like the DRC, Ghana, Senegal, Nigeria, we're still forging ahead to develop our gas reserves. And so there's still hope. But hope without real action won't really amount to much. And so there's still work to be done. Next slide, please. So I cannot talk about gas and the prospects and the potentials of gas without talking about what Sahara Group is doing in the gas space. Our strategy in the gas sector is hinged on 3 focus areas: gas to power communities, gas to power plants, and gas trading and storage, because whatever the ambitions may be, it must be backed by the logistics infrastructure to drive that. So one of the things that we started a few years ago as part of our CSR and sustainability to reduce gas flaring, but also to contribute to the economic empowerment of our host communities, was the Gas to Power project. And we started with a Joki community. This year, we will see 1 or 2 more communities being added to that list in the neighboring area where we have our operations. So what we basically did was to divert part of the gas that was being flared originally from OML 148 into powering that community. Of course, we all know what that does. It will drive commerce, drive, economic empowerment. Even the small-scale businesses, they're growing and they're thriving. But you know what happens when such things, occur? There's now pressure on that community, and so it's important that we're spreading that goodwill to other communities as well, to ensure that the value is spread around. Gas to power plants. We own a number of power plants in Nigeria, the Egbin Power PLC. That's a 1,320 megawatt capacity plant. We also own a combination of 5 plants in Rivers State, also generating power. And the idea is whatever gas we're developing and we're processing, we must be able to push it to these power plants and other power plants around the area as well, and also to industries to drive even LPG for it's clean cooking, for manufacturing, and all of that, and even for CNG use as well. Now with gas trading and storage, one of the things we're doing is we're trying to drive capacity, storage capacity across Africa with at least 68 million liters across the continent. And currently to support that, we have 4 LPG vessels in our fleet. We actually have 3 under construction as well. 2 are dual carriage. 1 will be ready in August this year. Another early 2026. And then an LNG carrier, another LPG carrier, beg your pardon, later in 2026. Next slide, please. So when I talked about the spread for storage across Africa, we're looking at Nigeria, of course, Ghana, in the East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, and Cote d'Ivoire as well, back in South Africa. And it's to ensure that there's regional coverage. The landlocked countries, for instance, around Cote d'Ivoire, are also able to access it. Mali and the like are also able to access gas and also to secure storage for in-country for Cote d'Ivoire. So we're doing that in Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and then spreading that to East Africa, Kenya, and Tanzania. Next slide, please. Okay, this just talks about our journey in terms of acquiring our fleet. Started in 2017 with 2 LPG vessels. 2022 acquired 2 more. And then, of course, like I talked about, 2025, we're expecting 1 in August, and then another 2 next year. Next slide, please. So we can see that, there's some prospects. What I just wanted to do was set the tone for the interesting conversations that will follow. And I'd say we must be serious about 3 key areas. So investment in the infrastructure to drive the use, institutional commitment to actually seeing it through, to actually making these things work, And then lastly, let's use gas as a clean energy launch pad. As we develop renewable energy capacity, let's ensure that we're also leveraging gas to close the gap and to balance the intermittencies. Thank you.
Another round of applause, please. This conversation is very interesting, right? Because when I saw the topic, the question became, so how much gas do we even have in Africa? And one article is telling me over 620 trillion scoff. At that point, I'm wondering, please, if there's a way for me to tap into this, I need to be part of this conversation, because that is not just a viable investment, that's investment that would still feed back to improving the lives of those of us in Africa. And so whatever we do here today, this conversation, I need us to know that this conversation is very, very important, right? Like Bethel had said, it's not just about today. It's ensuring that tomorrow remains sustainable and viable. Another round of applause for Sahara Group, because I would think that when we saw the achievements so far, the effort, the investments, we would be applauding during the presentation, but I understand that we respected Ejiro grades. It's all right. Quickly moving forward, we're having an address by Engineer Abel Nsah, who is the Senior Technical Advisor to the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas. Engineer Abel. An improved round of applause, please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. In Nigeria, most times you say you want to stand on existing protocol. I went to University of Ibadan recently, and one of the professors said, I like to lean on existing protocol. So I bring you greetings from my boss, the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas. I'm sure you know he holds the Sahara Group in high esteem. He was at your recent, I was there as well, commissioning of the power plant in Afam 2. And so he sends his greetings. And he's given me an address here to share with you. But I'm tempted after Mrs. Madame Ejiro spoke, and you can sum all that she said in simple words, VUCA. That's volatility. You can see that everywhere. There's uncertainty, and there's the complexity of the space, not just in Nigeria, but globally. And the A there is ambiguity. So that talks to you about there's going to be dynamics in the world. That dynamics is, one thing I readily remember was there's a company, Cheniere Energy, for some of us who know the south of the US a little bit well. They were putting between 2006 and 2008, when gas prices were so high, they were putting a regasification facility to take gas, to receive gas, predominantly from Nigeria, and you look at that, they were putting it as Train 7, gas from Brass LNG. And so if you open various journals at that time, you will see them, sometimes they mark it in asterisks, looking for a localer to come from Nigeria. So they were waiting for Nigeria to do something. Guess what happened? Fast forward a few years later, they reconfigured the plant to a liquefaction facility for export. Guess what? That was thanks to the shale gas. So shale gas changed the story of the United States and virtually the world. Come towards our time, we see, I'll recommend this book, The New Map, by David, what's his name? That gentleman who handles CERAWeek. So I think it's necessary we take a look at it. Because what she was saying, which summed it up, that uncertainty, the volatility, everybody looked at those two major lines coming out of the Russia into Europe, Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. And you saw during these challenges, the conflict in the, between Ukraine and Russia, that story has changed. So she talked about funding coming out of the OECD countries, about Africa restricting funding into Africa that has caused us to start looking at our energy bank. So there's also the dynamics in gas. she summed up the whole story by saying, listen, we've got the potential, 210 trillion cubic feet of gas from what NUPRC released recently. But there's a challenge. That gas is stranded in some places. So there's infrastructure connectivity issues to bring it from the supply sources to the demand centers. I recall Nigeria Gas Master Plan. So the gas story is sweet. Gas to power, gas-based industries, gas to commercials. And, but unfortunately, I actually have an address, and the minister looked through this address and asked I should deliver it. So, but the discussion of gas is something I've been part of for quite a while, from the gas flare commercialization to all sorts of issues. So when she talked about flaring down, each time you stop flaring 1 million standard cubic feet of gas. So if you're talking of a combined cycle, you are the power people. You're losing the capacity to generate 4 megawatts of electricity, and you've lost it forever. So when somebody tells you don't flare gas, they are serious about it. And it's for our own benefit. And I saw some slides there. It's for socioeconomics of our people. So we need to change. That narrative has got to change. Africa resources are fantastic, but that story really has to change. The minister's address goes forth. It's an honor to join you in this second edition of the Asharami Square, an important initiative by Asharami Group, Sahara Group, that's shaping how we communicate and act on urgent themes of sustainable energy transition and development. Let me begin by really applauding the Sahara Group. Your commitment to shaping this public discourse through this platform creates a space where energy meets communication, policy meets media. Asharami Group is helping to bridge that gap between intention and action. You cannot just keep thinking of how things are going to do, the gas master plan, the infrastructure. Remember, we all sit down, remember the infrastructure blueprint. So the question is, when we lay out this framework, how do we rank ourselves? Natural gas is not merely a transitional fuel. To us, it's a transformational fuel. It's just as if she saw what I wrote. It can power industries, energize homes, provide clean cooking, reduce dependence on polluting fuels, and drive the engine for inclusive economic growth. According to the IEA, 7% of global natural gas reserves is within Africa. That's in Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt, and Mozambique, holding majority of these volumes, and yet the continent consumes about 5% of global gas output. This mismatch between potential and utilization must be addressed with urgency and purpose. Again, I really applaud you, what you're doing, looking at Africa generally, that story has got to change. In Nigeria, under the renewed hope of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, the Decade of Gas Initiative, she spoke about that. It's not just a slogan. It's a national strategy, a strategy that gas resources has to lift millions of Nigerians out of poverty, diversify the economy, provide cleaner alternatives in cooking, transportation, and power generation. Harnessing the power of natural gas, ladies and gentlemen, requires more than good intentions. It demands bold investments in infrastructure, just like what we've seen. We need pipelines that connect supply centers to demand, supply sources to demand centers. We need virtual pipelines that reach the underserved. We need financing framework that de-risk investment and incentivize private sector participation. I really thought some of us were going to clap when she spoke about the fact that we've crossed the River Niger with AKK. I'm sure the NNPC gentleman will talk a little bit more on that. That's why we undertake initiatives such as LPG penetration programs for clean cooking. And she spoke about regional infrastructure. So regional infrastructure collaboration, the West African gas pipeline, the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline, that's the Trans-African Atlantic gas pipeline. So under that scenario, we invite local and international investors to partner with us as we expand infrastructure from domestic utilization and exports. The goal is simple. Let no molecule of our gas remain stranded. And that's why we need to put the necessary infrastructure in place. The implementation of the PIA has provided Nigeria with a modern regulatory and legal framework that enables greater transparency, competitive returns, and investor confidence. It couldn't have been better. Ladies and gentlemen, at the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, we continue to work with our regulatory agencies, the NMDP, and Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority, and the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, to ensure stable, responsive, and innovation-friendly policy environment. Let me take a moment to commend the core objectives of the Asharami team. The gentleman who came earlier on had spoken a bit about it. Strengthening media capacity in sustainability reporting. In this era, there's an era of misinformation. The media plays a vital role in shaping public understanding. We cannot run away from that. And influencing policy direction. The narratives you frame can either ignite action or encourage apathy. So we must therefore equip journalists with the tools and technical understanding to tell the stories right. Stories that humanize energy poverty, spotlight progress, and challenge the status quo. Stories that connect gas with jobs, with education, with health, and with the dignity that comes from having light in a child's classroom, anywhere in Africa, or fuel a farmer's tractor. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Africa cannot afford to be passive participants in the global energy transition. We must shape our own narrative and determine our own path. Let's briefly stop a little bit. 2009, just before the World Cup, a small company outside of the north of Houston, what's it called? I'm just forgetting the name now, was in trying to get out of Mozambique, but all of a sudden they struck 40 TCF of gas. The company is called Anadaco. A lot of us know about Anadaco. It's a small independent out in the US. Struck gas, I think it was 40 TCF of gas, went further. Today, you can see what gas is doing in Mozambique. That's really what we need to put out here as well. Not just for international, leaning on LNG, but something a lot of us have to, is the PIA has made provision for domestic gas supply, domestic gas delivery obligation. And we don't have to take that for granted. Let us not just speak of gas as missed opportunity. Let us act now. So is acting now, so that future generations will speak of gas as a fuel that powered Africa's transformation. In closing, I thank Sahara Group once again for creating this impactful platform. Let this edition of Asharami Square not just be a conversation, but a catalyst for informed action, investment, and inclusive progress. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources remains committed to working with all stakeholders to harness gas, not just as a resource, but as a legacy. So I'd like to thank you very much, and I wish all of us fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Another round of applause, please. Now we're moving on to our keynote speaker, but before we have him come up, I am going to give us a brief introduction as to who he is. Real quickly, we have Dr. Justice Darifaka, who is a visionary leader with more than 24 years of cross-sectional experience in oil, gas, and energy, spanning production sharing contracts and joint venture asset management, gas commercialization, upstream investment, governance, policy, advisory, sustainability leadership, and infrastructure project execution. He currently serves as a Group Asset Manager, PSC Asset Group B, at NMPC Upstream Investment Management Services, the investment arm of NMPC Limited. In his capacity, he oversees a diverse portfolio of high-value producing assets, including Agbami, Usan, Era, Antan Producing Limited, Sterling OMLs 143, 146, 157, and OPL's 2005 and 2006, and Sahara Group's energy-operated OML 148 and OPL 228, spanning both deepwater and onshore operations. These assets collectively contribute over 279,000 barrels of oil per day and more than 1.215 million scf of gas, making PSC Asset Group B a cornerstone of Nigeria's energy output, energy security, and fiscal sustainability. Dr. Darifaka is responsible for performance management, field development plan execution, reserve growth strategy, asset integrity, and upstream budget governance. As life of field plan owner, he provides strategic and operational oversight of multidisciplinary units, exploration, petroleum engineering, operations, and facilities, while managing a combined CapEx-OPEX budget exceeding $28 billion. He is also responsible for interfacing with regulatory bodies, including the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority, Federal Ministry of Environment, Nigerian Ports Authority, Nigerian Aviation Authority, and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. His regulatory engagement ensures alignment with Nigeria's Decade of Gas Aspirations, the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, and the Global Energy Transition Goals. As of 2025, the portfolio under his leadership holds 3.4 billion barrels of oil equivalent in liquid and 9.9 trillion cubic feet of gas reserves, reinforcing the strategic value of Asset Group B for Nigeria's long-term energy future. He is a vocal advocate of Africa's energy transition and has been instrumental in shaping investment-friendly regulatory reforms, clean energy transition pathways, and private sector-aligned gas expansion programs. His policy and technical leadership on the Nigerian gas flare commercialization program, the federal government's Year of Gas 2020, and the ongoing Decade of Gas initiative have been central to a national strategy aimed at unlocking over 209 trillion scf of proven gas reserves, attracting billions of US dollars in private sector investment, reducing million tons of CO2 emissions annually, and creating thousands of direct and indirect jobs. He serves as technical advisor on the NGFCP and gas business and policy implementation to two honorable ministers of state for petroleum resources, Dr. Emmanuel Ibe Kwachuku and HE Chief Timipre M. Silva, CON, respectively. In those roles, he championed the Decade of Gas vision, catalyzed midstream and gas-based industrial infrastructure. He helped steer reforms aligned with the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Earlier in his career, Dr. Darifaka held senior technical and HSE leadership positions at Shell Nigeria, now Renaissance Africa Energy Company, and Shell Nigerian Exploration and Production Company, including Head of Waste Management Discipline for Shell companies in Nigeria, Head Materials Management and Investment Recovery, Head Environmental and Social Performance for Deepwater Projects, as well as corporate HSE roles for onshore pipelines and FPSO offshore operations. Academically distinguished, Dr. Darifaka holds a doctorate in Business Administration, University of Bradford, MSc in Sustainability Leadership, University of Cambridge, MSc in Environmental Management, University of Lagos, and BTech in Marine Engineering, Rivers State University. He is a fellow of the Sustainability Professionals Institute of Nigeria and a member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Nigerian Gas Association, Nigerian Environment Society, and the Institute of Environmental Management and Asset. He's a passionate mentor, a public policy advocate, and an international speaker. Dr. Darifaka is known for his clarity of thought, ethical leadership, stakeholder diplomacy, and tireless drive to create value through innovation, sustainability, and inclusive energy development. Dr. Darifaka is not here with us, but is ably represented by Frank Mabelu.
So I'm wondering what's making people laugh from the background. But I know you took some time to reel out Dr. Derefaka's biodata, and that was I was really excited to work with him. I will make an attempt this morning to kind of provide some context in terms of the topic. He has asked me to present a paper, but I want to make it a little bit connecting instead of reading out that paper for everybody. I think Emmanuel Jiro made a good work on what Sahara is doing, and I'm delighted to be here this morning to talk about Sahara. And if you work for Sahara, I think you should stand up and give Sahara a round of applause, please. Please. Thank you. So I think the two speakers spoke about what is our story, what is the African story, what are we going to do look inwards to really do the work that is required of us to do. I think there has been expectations that we all need to have some help outside, either from the international oil companies, but the truth is that these guys are private investors. They come here, they want to make money, and they'll ship that money out. We need indigenous players that know what to do to come and begin to do what they need to do to harness gas investment in Africa. And that's what we intend to present in this paper. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends of Africa, there's this old African proverb that says that the sun does not forget a village just because it is small. On my way here, I was reflecting on today's gathering, and I imagine our beautiful continent as a small village with promise and that often been overlooked, sometimes underestimated. It struck me that that African natural gas is like a sun waiting to rise fully over the village, to light it up, warm it, and awake it in its full glory. But as elders always remind us, even the sun needs someone to open the window. And today, Sahara has started opening those windows. There's been a lot of talk around gas, how rich Africa is with gas. As you all know, Mr. Abel have said it, that we have huge gas resources, 210 or 206, depending on how which data source is coming from. But potentially, Africa has over 600 TCF of gas. Yet, the reality is that we have over 600 million Africans live without electricity. 900 rely on firewood, 900 million rely on firewood, charcoal to cook their daily meals. So the entire economy remains fragile with grids that are unstable and imported fuels. So you recall one of the Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We are faced with this fact, tomorrow is today. We are comforted with the fierce urgency of now." So Africa stands as a crossroad. We can't afford for another decade of exporting our raw materials while importing our dignity. Let us open the window, let us enhance the sun, and let us shine a light through gas on Africa's sustainable future. So we need to write our own story, leveraging on this natural gas to electrify our homes, create dignified employment, just like that Sahara is doing. Fuel agriculture by affordable fertilizer. You see what Dangote Fertilizers and Indorama Fertilizer is doing to the country. We replace wood and charcoal by protecting our health and environment. There's a lot of buzz on climate action. We understand our planet is in peril, but climate justice must go hand in hand with climate ambition. And it's fair for sustainable to tell Africa not to abandon its gas, while developed other worlds continue to burn coal and expand our oil production and import African LNG. So why gas matters is, in a deeper context, is one that we want to say no to poverty. Energy is a cornerstone for economic development. Gas-based electricity unlocks entrepreneurship, powers small and medium-scale industries, sustain our livelihood. Studies have shown that communities that are set up with 30% higher incomes, greater resilience to shock, gas-driven industry clusters can bring jobs and to marginalized regions and break intergenerational poverty. Zero hunger. Africa today annually imports fertilizers, yet it can convert. We have a lot of gas that can be converted to urea and ammonia for agriculture. Countries like Nigeria, through plants in Indorama and Dangote, today already supply million tons of affordable fertilizer, increasing crop yields up to 40 to 50% in the region. I spoke about how 900 million Africans still cook on wood and charcoal, which leads to around 600,000 premature deaths annually from respiratory diseases that are actually affecting only mostly women and children. So switching to LPG alone and natural gas will save life, but also reduce indoor pollution by over 90%. Gender equality. Most of our women and girls today spend up to 5 hours daily gathering firewood. And the time they should have spent in school, leading to clean gas frees our women from this burden and empowering them to participate fully on economic and social life and political life. You've seen the number of women that work in Sahara today. Sahara has provided that opportunity for those women and children by ensuring that they invest in gas. I think I will just go into what are these imperative success. We've spoken about regional infrastructure, the need to have the gas infrastructure that will unlock a pipeline grid, LNG terminals and storage, transcending through the west coast of Africa to light cities like in Dakar, industrial zones in Kano and Chad. So we need to prioritize our local value addition. So this issue of exporting our gas to NLNG must be frowned upon. So we should build more petrochemical plants, fertilizer plants, and industry. We should invest in human capital and technology, build infrastructure, train more of our engineers to be hands-on in delivering good goals in our industry. I think round up by saying that the vision for tomorrow is now. If this gas beneath our feet could speak, it will ask us, why do you not let me to waste? Why your people want gas? Why do you want to sell me away? Why our children stay in darkness? Why do you wait? Why others run? I think you must not let history say to this generation that we stood on a mountain of gold and then we choose to beg at its roots. Natural gas is more than a resource. In the light of the classroom, the child's eyes no longer strained by candlelight, but sparkle with the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The warmth in the kitchen, where a mother no longer coughs or the smoke, but cooks with dignity and ease. It powers our factory, where human machines drown in silence of unemployment. I think it's very important for us to open the window and let the sun shine. Let us strike this match. Let's light this torch and light up Africa. Because it is not for us, then who? If not now, then when? Thank you very much.
Another round of applause, please. I could tell that after I read Dr. Justice bio, the media were wondering why I took my time, only to not tell you that he's ably represented. Such a profile does not go unnoticed, right? You don't do that many things. You don't create such an impact. And then, no. We don't do that. We recognize the effort that he has put in. We recognize his actions, the bodies that he has set up, his policy advocacy, and we do not take that for granted. Real quick, we are going to be having a tea break, which is going to be for 15 minutes. So please, directly behind you, a minute, please. Okay, so we're going to be having the tea break, table by table. So please, the first set of tables in front, please proceed to the tea break section to have your tea break. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be proceeding with Asharami Square 2.0 in a few minutes. If we could please return to our seats. If we could please return to our seats. Okay, welcome back everyone. I'm trusting that the tea break was a delicious one. Well, I'd like to introduce us to one of our key traits in Sahara. We call it fun in efficiency, which means that everywhere we go, even when we're making a difference, we have to be happy doing it. Sahara is very key on that. Now we're going to play a quick game of Kahoot. Kahoot, oh yeah, my code will be showing up on the screen very soon. You're going to have to scan the barcode of Kahoot. And when the game starts, there are going to be a series of questions, which we will then expect the fastest responses. Can I have Kahoot, please? Okay. So Kahoot is on the screen and the pin is going to load very soon. So once the pin loads, if you're someone who already has the app, you can just enter the pin and it would add you to the game. If you're not, you then scan the barcode and you can use the web version of Kahoot. Well, Kahoot says that fun can take a while. While we wait for Kahoot, we are going to focus on the efficiency part while we wait for the fun. And we're going to reemphasize that the conversation today is to drive the mindset of sustainability with regards to Africa's gas, the gas that we have available. How can we then use that to build something that improves not just today, but improves tomorrow? One of our speakers earlier spoke to the fact that you can get to the point where even as a child, your mindset, there's that dignity in your mindset to know that power is available, gas is doing something for me, and it's creating a level of economic stability around me. Well, at this point, we're going to start playing fun facts if Kahoot doesn't want to. Okay, I believe that Kahoot will respond to us later. We will be coming back to that. Real quickly, we're then going to move into our next order of the day, which is our panel session. And this panel session is affording you decades of knowledge, of experience, decades of information that has been gathered, worked on, utilized to ensure that when we speak to gas, we're not just speaking at the very skim of the top, we're speaking to implementable action. Our panel session is going to be moderated by none other than our business performance manager, oil and gas. A round of applause, please. Wait, I don't think have you seen seen the things that we do in Sahara. And this is somebody that is saying that for every little thing, she's paying attention. No, please, a better round of applause. Well, welcome with me, Omobola Adesulu.
Good afternoon, everyone, and once again, welcome to Asharami Square 2.0. My name is Omobolani Adesulu, as Mo has just mentioned. And when I was first reached out to moderate this panel, I was very, very excited. I mean, obviously, after the first 5 seconds of, tension. But I was excited because this conversation is important, and the people in this room are important. From the Sahara team that work every day to bring energy to life responsibly, to the media team that's here to shape the narrative, to understand the narrative and help us push it to every single person in the country and in the continent. This conversation is important. For our partners in government, this conversation is also very important, and which is why I'm happy to be here today. So in Sahara, we are very passionate about sustainability, as you can already well see or hear. I mean, we've had multiple presentations, and we've had people come and speak about Sahara, about sustainability, and about what we need to do. And I mean, you can even see it plastered everywhere in the words in front of you. It says, bringing energy to life responsibly. And the responsibly part is very, very deliberate, because it shows that no matter what we're doing, we're always consistently trying to see how we can be sustainable, we can do things better, a little step at a time, until we are able to fully bring energy to life responsibly. Mo already mentioned that I lead the business performance team for Sahara Group, and I will be the moderator for this session. The theme for today is harnessing gas for Africa's sustainable future. And it simply just means, how can we leverage on the abundant gas reserves that we have to support Africa's developing growth, Africa's development journey? And that's why we're here today. And that's why everybody in this room is important, because we play a very key and important role in this. I have with me a team of amazing people that will be speaking to us today. Every single one of them is doing their own little part in trying to make a difference, in working every day to make a difference. And that's part of the reasons why we're here today. We want to break down what seems like maybe a very technical issue and then put it in bits and pieces that's easy for everyone to understand. We want it to be a very insightful and engaging session. And I'm very, very confident that we'll be able to achieve this objective. So I'll be inviting my panelists up. And when I invite them, they should please just come up and then take a seat. I'll just do a quick introduction. And first of all, I'll start with Mrs. Ijeoma Isiche. Mrs. Ijeoma Isiche is a seasoned commercial leader in the oil and gas space. She has over 20 years experience. She also has some experience in investment banking as well. She currently manages the Sahara Natural Gas Liquid commercial operations, and she also manages the LPG fleet vessels that we have. I mean, Adriel had already sort of presented that during the presentation, so she manages that. Over the years, she has built strong relationships and strong partnerships over the public and private sector, and she's one of the people helping Sahara to make a difference every single day. Thank you so much, Ijeoma, for being here today. Can we get a round of applause? Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Olurotimi Famoroti. He's currently the CEO of First Independent Power Company Limited. It's one of Sahara's power generating plants located in Port Harcourt. But aside from power generation, he's also worked in power distribution. He's done a bit of work in logistics, aviation, and he's also worked in the oil and gas space. Today, he's expected to bring sort of a people-first perspective to this conversation that we'll be having. He's expected to talk to us about how gas can support reducing poverty and how it can support small and medium-sized businesses as well. Thank you so much, Rotimi, for coming. Next, we have Maria Luciano Gabriel. Maria is an energy expert, particularly with all things upstream, anything upstream, and I mean, Maria is your guru. She has deep experience in government relations, commercial operations, project economics, risk strategy, and she currently leads Sahara's upstream business, midstream gas. So Asharami Energy's midstream gas business. So obviously she's very important to this conversation. She's also very passionate about people, about women, and she's one of the founding members of Women in Energy Network, and she also sits in several professional organizations as well. Thank you so much, Mariam. Next on the panel, we have Mobolaji Sumomi, and he's our finance expert. So obviously, for everything you need money. It's only money that is going to help us to achieve our goals, right? And so he's here to give us all the insights on all things money. And he's coming with the experience. So he has over 12 years experience in corporate and investment banking. He's done a lot of things with regards to project finance and infrastructure, particularly with midstream power and then the infrastructure sectors. And he would be speaking to us today about what it would really take to fund Africa's gas future. Thank you so much, Mobolaji. And then we have Dr. Adeola Yusuf, and he is one of your very own. He is an award-winning journalist and a renowned energy communication researcher. He leads Platform Africa, that is a respected media group, and he is also a mentor to budding journalists. Please give a warm round of applause. Thank you so much, Dr. Adeola. And he will be speaking to us today about the power of the narrative. And lastly, we have the Senior Technical Advisor, Mr. Abel Nsa. He would also be sharing with us, he's already spoken to us today, and he'll be sharing with us some of the insights he's learned from working in the gas sector as well. And thank you so much, Mr. Abel Nsa. So in terms of the panel modalities, as mentioned earlier, the theme for today's discussion is harnessing gas for Africa's sustainable future. In terms of the session, we'll just be engaging our panelists, we'll be asking them some questions, and we'll be learning from their years of experience, and I'm very, very excited for that. It will be 3 rounds of questions, and then we'll open the floor to Q&A. So if you have any question, please feel free to write it down, and after the session, we'll take a couple of questions, and then we'll bring the panel session to a close. So thank you very much, and we'll begin in basically about a minute. All right, thank you. All right, thanks again, everyone. And we'll be starting with the panel session today. And we'll be starting with Ijoma, I see here. Ijoma will be speaking to us majorly focused on and educating us on gas as a bridge fuel, or as a transition fuel, as some people call it. And she will also be speaking to us about regional integration, which just simply means how countries in Africa can work together to achieve their sustainability journey. So Ijoma, and I think Idris also mentioned this during her presentation, that different countries are on their sustainability journey, right? Some of them have made more progress than others. But in your opinion, or from your perspective, what do you think the role of gas is in Africa's development journey? Why do people say it's a bridge fuel? Why do people say it's a transition fuel? And how do you see it contributing to our sustainability future? Just please share some insights on that.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Mobola. Thanks for starting with me first. And I stand on all existing protocol, or as Dr. Abel said, I lean on all existing protocol. So what is the role of gas in Africa's development in terms of our future? So we all know that gas is a form of energy, and energy is a source of power. So as Ejiro has earlier mentioned, there's gas to power initiatives which Sahara is involved with. So gas is instrumental in the electrification of Africa and in turn in industrialization. So electrification would give rise to industrialization. Like we see in Nigeria, a lot of the industries in Nigeria have fallen apart because of the lack of power. you also find that the overheads are quite high in terms of our small-scale businesses, again, because of the lack of power. There's a huge dependency on diesel generators, which cost an arm and a leg. They cost more than if we had a sustainable grid generated from gas. So I believe that gas goes a very long way for Africa's sustainable future because it provides for us cheaper gas resource, it provides us cheaper energy resource, pardon me, and this would bring about electrification and in turn industrialization in terms of more jobs. Also, gas is a necessary resource for agriculture, for example, in fertilizer, in urea, in industries. So it's really would go a long way for Africa's socio-economic development. I believe you had a question about it being a bridge. It's actually a bridge fuel. So why is it considered as a bridge fuel as well as being, necessary for our development? Gas, as compared to other fossil fuels, so for example, burning kerosene or burning firewood or coal, releases less carbon emissions to the air. And because, of course, the world is turning to a net zero carbon emission, this is a halfway point to achieving a net zero carbon emission. In fact, according to statistics, it's evident that gas emits about 50% less of carbon emissions into the air than your typical burning kerosene or firewood, or coal. So the reduction in carbon emissions makes it a halfway alternative, hence considered as a bridge. So basically you are halfway getting to, the net zero carbon emission fuels.
Right, thank you so much, Ijoma, for that perspective. And I think it sort of ties to the question I have for Rotimi. So she already mentioned something that with gas, we can help to bring power closer to the people. And I think that's what every person on the road wants to understand. The person wants to understand, how can gas help me do better? How can gas help my growth? And that comes to the question for you, Rotimi. What exactly is the role that gas would play to reduce poverty and to support small and medium businesses, right? And particularly for areas that are underserved or unserved that struggle with having reliable power. Because I think what people always say is that power is the backbone of any economy. So what's the role of gas in that? And how can gas support people, reduce poverty, and then support businesses?
Thank you, Mabala, for that question. I'm going to be a little bit unconventional with my response. I hope you don't mind. I like to try and create a context so that it can be as vivid as possible, and it can resonate with most of us. All right. Today, grid generates roughly about 4,700 megawatts thereabout. I think the last peak was in February as about 5,430. Depending on which statistics you're looking at, you're going to be looking at about 22,000 megawatts to 45,000 megawatts demand for Nigeria. Now, what I want to create is a context of where we are and where we can be if we close that gap. And I want to use the story of Akpos, Mama Akpos, and Baba Akpos. Those are just names that I chose from my head. But I think Akpos is a very popular name somewhere around Nigeria. So Baba Akpos is a welder, yeah? Daytime welder, about 9 hours, 10 hours daytime work. In the evening, he doubles as an Okada rider. In the daytime, he has a potential of working for 8 to 9 hours, and then a potential of 5,000 per hour. But due to our current states of power supply, he's only able to work for 3 hours. You can do the maths and show the differential in revenue lost. Now he goes and tries to make up in the evening and buys petrol, which Ijoma has clearly told us puts double what gas will put into the environment. And then he runs it for another 2 to 3 hours and probably makes what he should have made in 1 hour of daytime productive work for that whole 3 hours. Then come back to Mama Akpos, who is Baba Akpos's wife. She runs a hairdressing salon. She suffers the same differential in energy supply relative to loss of revenue. Let's assume she makes even less, maybe 3,000 per hour, but she's lost 6 hours of that 9 hours that she should have earned, so she earns less than her husband. So what does she do? She takes up another side hustle to be cooking for people, all right? But there's no industrialization, so she only cooks for her neighbors. Paltry sums of cooking that doesn't really even make ends meet. Now let's fast forward to our utopia, where we can close that gap. So Baba Akpobs works for 9 straight hours and earns his full 45,000 naira a day, as opposed to the, was it 15 that is earning now. Let's even assume that he's even adventurous. Yeah? He tries to scale it up and extend because there's stability in the power supply. So he can do a bit of overtime work. So occasionally he does 12 hours, he gets 60. Now that's more money in his pocket. Then let's come to Akpos. Akpos is a SS3 student studying for his final exams. And all his life, he's done only black house. So he's been reading with candles. So his eyes are bad, and he's had to, pay for glasses that are inefficient because his parents can't afford it. So he's struggling academically. The utopia period for Akpos would mean that he wouldn't have that deficiency. He would be a brilliant pupil, and he will then make a mark in life. Then Mama Akpos, who has to battle with hairdressing for 3 hours when he can make 9 hours, and then still has to cook. Now, when we have our utopia movement, where we have accessibility to power, which is driven by gas because it is extremely scalable, and we have all the right infrastructures in place. All right, Mama, of course, will not cook with kerosene, we will cook with LPG. Our health conditions will be better. In fact, she will also be selling the LPG cylinder while also still doing our hairdressing business. So you can understand the scale and enormity of multiple streams of income that will go into that family. So that, in a layman's point of view, by my own understanding, is the impact that gas can have in trying to impact, social economy of our people in Nigeria, and of course, eliminate poverty and giving them access to a better life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rotimi, and thank you for highlighting how gas can basically improve the quality of life of the average individual, right? I mean, I think that was very, very powerful, and it really ties to the next question for Maria, because you said something. Right now, people have to supplement what you would consider more sustainable forms of energy with some that is less sustainable. Right, so it then brings me to my question for Maria, and it's more of a long-term thing, but as we're trying to build like a sustainable future for Africa, in your opinion, what is a sustainable energy mix? What is an ideal energy mix? Because there's something that Adri also sort of touched on when she was presenting. We cannot, at least at this time, Africa cannot completely eliminate the use of things, the other sources of energy. But what we have to do is try and see how to supplement it with more sustainable energy sources. So in your perspective, what does an ideal mix look like and right now, and what would that mix look like, or what should it look like in the next maybe 10, 20 years?
All right, thank you very much for that question. So when we're talking about your ideal energy mix for any country, because it's going to differ from country to country, right? Because you have to look at the energy security, the things that make up the facets of energy security. Is the accessibility to the resources that you're talking about. You can't go to a country that experiences 80% winter and be talking about solar, so what are the things that are available to you? And for accessibility, gas scores very high for Nigeria. We have over 2 trillion scoff of gas in Nigeria, and that is more than enough to power our own needs. It's more than enough to trade internationally. So we have the resource in abundance. It is accessible. There are proven recoverable reserves. So it ticks the accessibility box. Then you have affordability. it's definitely cheaper than diesel and all these other forms of energy that we consume now. So yes, it is affordable. And then you go into sustainability. So while it might not be as clean as solar, but gas is a cleaner form of energy. It emits lesser carbon emissions. So it is a sustainable fuel to use. And then you talk also about the reliability, your security of supply. You know, okay, are you dependent on another country? If there's a war, can you still access these resources? It is right here in our backyard. It's our own. So you have a stable security of supply. So gas ticks all the right boxes for energy security. But again, we're talking about an energy mix, so we cannot be 100% reliant on gas. But you do need gas because some of these other renewable sources that we are also privy to, because Nigeria, I mean, nobody has to tell you that solar is a fantastic. By the time the sun beats you once or twice, you will know that we have enough we have enough power in solar energy. You know, there's solar, there's hydro. You know, so we do have all these other renewable mixes. But in terms of powering some of the heavier industries, you know, the fertilizer industries, the industries that require, you know, exactly like steel and stuff like that, you still have to rely on gas. So you have to have a good balance, a good mix, you know. So I see a scenario whereby Nigeria will be getting to the point where we're using about, you know, 40 to 50% of gas. You know, then we have like solar and hydro taking up about, you know, maybe about 20% of that mix, and then, you know, we can't eliminate, you know, diesel and biomass and all these other forms of energy. So we will still have that in the mix, but we have enough resources in gas to be able to take up about half of that, to be able to power the country with about 50% gas in the energy mix. So definitely, gas is not just a transition fuel for us. You know, I think it's more or less a foundation fuel. It's going to help us to get to where we need to go to as a country. It's going to help us with the development needs that we have in this country. We just need to. Anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But basically, we just need to use the gas that we have. We need to harness all of its potential, and there are so many things that we need to do to be able to get there. And those are the things that, you know, I think over the next couple of years as a country, we need to be focusing on so that we can get this energy mix right.
Thanks a lot, Maria. And I liked something that you said. You said that every country's energy mix is different. You have to look at what your own peculiarities are as a nation, and you have to work with that. So what might work for the US will not work for Nigeria. In fact, what might work for Ghana, that's just right beside us, might not work for Nigeria. So I think that was also a very good insight for us to know that at every point in time, we need to look at what works for us as a country. And that brings me to my question for Mr. Abel. Working in the ministry, what are your own thoughts as to gas? I know you had sort of touched on it when you had mentioned the gas master plan. I mean, but taking into consideration the peculiarities of Nigeria, if you can just shed more light on how gas would affect us as a country, how it can support us as a country, so that, I mean, this room full of people here can better understand the importance of gas and how it can help to support Nigeria's growth.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am. As you were talking, I started drafting the map of Nigeria. Beautiful. So one, she's talked about affordability, accessibility. So I think I'm going to go back to accessibility, or what you might call reaching or reachability, or whatever the English would be, or the semantics. It's simple. One of government's priority, or one of primary responsibility of a government, is promote commerce. And as we kept going round, one of the major things is the socioeconomics that gas will do to the people. I also like the fact that, what works for Nigeria may not work for these. And as you were talking, what came to my mind is Trinidad and Tobago and something like that. Now, reach the people wherever they are. I spoke about crossing the River Niger. So if you take Nigeria, let's, from an imaginary point of view, split Nigeria into grids. Okay, for the northern part of the country, the northeast part of the country, we have AKK that will get all the way to Kaduna Kano. So for that, that's a major artery that goes to, that's similar to Escravos Lagos pipeline. And you see what Escravos Lagos pipeline has done. So you've got like your Egmi draws from there, Omoto Shore, the Papaland to Olorun Shogo. So you can have those connectivity into that major artery. So AKK provides that major artery up there. OB3 provides the connectivity between the east to the supply centers of the, demand centers along the west. And so I need, Nigeria's story is simple. We've got the potential, everybody keeps talking about the reserves. So I need connectivity to the market. If it doesn't reach the people, it really cannot. So for it to reach the people, you need to take it to them. One of the best sources to move it across is your major pipelines. The alternative is virtual pipelines, your CNG, your mini LNG. One of the ways is the innovation that comes into moving LNG. Remember, it's 1/600 times its original volume. So the volume that could fill this room, I can take it in a cup or thereabout and move it there as a liquid, put a regasification facility at the other end, regasify it, push it into the lines, and power my power plant or the industries. So it will change the narrative. If you recall when we were building Escravos gas to liquids, it brought back the Warri port. It activated so many things. If you imagine, say, 5,000 people working, cutting steel, if I want to put an LNG plant and so on, from the mama put woman to those selling, imagine when those people close in the afternoon, from the aviation sector during crew change to feeding the people cows, meat, and so on. So it just trickles down. So gas, that is what we are supposed to do. Gas-based industries, gas to power, and where there's no connectivity pipeline-wise, CNG, in spite of its limitation, then LNG. So that's what you need to do. So take a look at Nigeria wholly. That's only from an infrastructure perspective. Then look at someone was talking about the steel plants, the cement plants. So gas, we need to drive that narrative as a government. And that's what we're doing. You've seen what the president has signed in, those major policy direction that has activated investment into the sector. That's what, as a government, we need to do, and we need to touch lives. I keep just painting an imaginary picture. If you have each local government, 774 local governments, and you have a way to reach out, either in mini LNG or CNG, it will touch the country. Sections 104 of the PIA to 102 to 104 really talks about flare down. I don't want to see the flares anymore, so gas commercialization, cut that down. I really applaud you with what you're doing. So if we get that and it cascades to the common man and the woman, health will improve, lots of hospitals will be powered, so many things. Not even powering it from the national grid or the major arteries that are painted, but even virtual pipelines. And it could also come gradually, gets cheaper. So the socioeconomics of our people will be affected. And so we can go on and on and on with respect to gas. And I recall recently we had some engagement, the summit, and the immediate past chairman of Shell, Dr. Kumbo, was talking about, look, we've talked for too long. Go back into the archives, pick what you've done. And the minister was humble enough, tasked the team, what really did we have? The story really hasn't changed from 2005, 2007 till today. So it's time to wake up. If you recall what Mwandoro gas, for instance, was going to change, that was the first floating LNG that was coming to the world. But others have moved on. For me, it's really a wake-up call. Not just a wake-up. You need to utilize it. Recall how it took us before we got the PIA. Before then, the world has moved from, look, your hydrocarbon will stay with you. We are moving into the renewables. But it's not just a transition fuel, it's a transformational fuel. And we have that whole mindset set up to deploy it that will affect people. I think a week ago there was a meeting from SA Energy and the group and talking about power and gas, in spite of all the challenges that the power sector has. So gas is going to really drive the narrative. Let me just hold on for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Abel. As you were talking about all the projects, all the plans, and everything that government is speaking of, me, I'm a numbers person. I was just calculating all the money required in my head. And that brings me to Mobolaji. So he's spoken a lot, as I've just said, about the plans that we have, and all of this obviously requires funding. From your perspective, in looking at Africa and Nigeria more specifically, where do we currently stand with the investment that's required to fund our ambitious goals? What are some of the challenges that we are currently facing, and where do you sort of see us having an opportunity for improvement?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, or rather, good afternoon. I've always believed that a nation, or indeed a continent's claim to sovereignty is in food and energy security, and that's the truth. Like someone already said, if there's a war, can you feed yourself, and can you be energy sufficient? So this conversation is key, it's crucial. In Nigeria and in Africa, there's been developments in the gas space. There are power plants that power us, even if it's just 4,000 megawatts. There are industries, like you already said, steel, cement industries, heavy industries that rely heavily on gas. So some work has been done regarding gas infrastructure, midstream infrastructure. There's the AKK going on right now, looking to be completed in December of this year, even though there's been some time of a run. There's the West African gas pipeline that connects Nigeria, the Niger Delta to Ghana, Benin, and all of that. So some work has been done already in the gas infrastructure development in Africa. However, has enough been done? The answer is clearly no. I mean, locally even, I've been in conversations with developers who are looking at modular opportunities. So rather than, the large-scale infrastructure development that require a very huge quantum of capex spend, looking at modular processing plants and infrastructure that just taps from a producing well, captures the gas and all of that, and treats its processes and sells it. So some investments are happening, some conversations are ongoing. I've been in conversations that achieved financial close for trucking CNG, like he said, to a brewing company in Nigeria. And so some of those conversations are happening. So it's not like there's no investment, but is it enough? It's not enough. And some of the reasons why there's sort of a challenge with getting investments into the sector include regulatory uncertainty, which is a matter of fact. Like you just said, everybody knows how long it took the PIA to be passed. And no investor, no good, normal thinking investor will come into the country with funds, with huge capex, patient capital, concessionary capital, if the regulatory framework is uncertain. And then, so that's a key one. Thank God the PIA has been passed now. A lot of improvements have been seen, especially in the midstream space as well. So looking forward, the horizon looks good. There's been a variety of bankable projects. Like I said, I've seen some gas projects, and coming from a commercial banking perspective or a debt capital provider perspective, I'm not going to lose capital, even if I want to do a gas project because of the energy sufficiency conversation. I'm not going to do a transaction that allows me to lose either depositors' capitals or investors' capitals. So a lack of bankable projects, and this is where Africa-focused DFIs and the government also come in, where capital required to, first of all, de-risk, the project has been provided, so we can see bankable projects that we can comfortably deploy funds into, at least take our money back at no loss, and then maybe a decent return. I think lastly, or two more points, some of the other hurdles are the lack of infrastructure, which everybody has said. If I'm I have the prospecting license or the operating license for an oil well that has associated gas, I'm just going to focus on my oil, right, on the crude, right, because the infrastructure to trap the gas and process it, and then it's just this wells are in the Niger Delta and swampy areas and all of that. So infrastructure, there's high capex, and then there's insecurity lastly, and so all of this combined to make attracting investments into that space quite difficult. Are there opportunities? There are. I don't know, 40% of the Nigerian population, sometimes it's 50%, sometimes it's 30%, lack access to electricity, like everybody has said. So just even providing a diverse source of electricity, including gas and maybe solar mini grids and all of that, makes a difference. So there's opportunity there. Are we an industrialized continent in Africa? I don't think so. We're not. So there's the opportunity to industrialize locally in Nigeria and over the continent. And what that does for the continent, of course, like everybody has already said, improves the socio-economic welfare, more jobs, more industries, more manufacturing entities, less dependence on imports, greater FX reserves, etc. So are there opportunities? There are. I think yesterday or just 2 days ago, OPEC released something and said, up until maybe 2050 or 2100, they're still going to be dependent on oil. And that's the truth, oil and gas, despite the conversation around energy transition and moving to renewable energies. And look at our President Donald Trump and his perspective on all of this. So, I mean, investments need to come. There are opportunities. Like I said at the first instance, as a country and as a continent, the first step is to be energy sufficient. First of all, be energy sufficient and then export your excess energy and all of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mobalaji. Thank you for basically just educating us on where we stand with regards to financing, some of the opportunities, or first of all, some of the challenges that we're facing, and then spotlighting the opportunities there as well. I think what's important about that is we need to have these conversations, because it's by having these conversations that we can, first of all, understand where we are, understand what we need to do, and then work towards basically charting the path towards achieving the dreams. And part of that is having these sort of conversations, which sort of brings me to Dr. Adela Yusuf, right? So you work in the media space, you are a leading personality in the media space, and part of the reason why we are here is so we have this conversation, and that's why we have the media team here, because the media, they play a very important role in terms of shaping the narrative. So my question for you is, how can the media play like a very prominent role towards educating the general public about some of these conversations or some of these points that we've sort of discussed? And how can the media sort of ensure that the right message or the right story is being told, just so that we can get that buy-in of the general population? Is because when you have that buy-in, I mean, it sort of helps to move the journey of the conversation even faster. So that's my question for you.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want to appreciate Sahara Energy for this conversation. If I am not mistaken, this will be the first company that is doing this, having the media on the panel. And I think it's something that is very applauded. All right, having said that, let me quickly crave a 2-point caveat. The first one will have to do with permit me to speak today as an energy communication researcher rather than speaking as a journalist. Though from experience, I have journalism experience running into over 2 decades. But because of the fact that I have seated here people that have even edited my copies, senior journalists, senior editors, so there won't be anything that I will say here that will be new to those that actually taught me the job. So permit me to speak as an energy communication researcher. And if I will speak to that, I think I will base whatever contribution I'm going to make on facts and figures, because as journalists, as communication researchers, we deal with facts and figures. So the fact and figures I'm going to reel out now will be the one that I term, figures of irony, or ironic figures of in gas sector. Of course, everyone is familiar with the figure of reserves that we have, over 200 trillion. Okay, side by side with over 200 trillion score of gas that we have in our reserve, which came from NUPRC. There is another figure from NBS, that 19.4% of Nigerians are just the ones that have the actual penetration of cooking gas. Of course, if you want to just judge by the fact that the food that you have eaten today, were cooked through gas, that speaks to the fact that 80.4% of Nigerians are still not exposed to this gas, despite the fact that in our soil or elsewhere we have over 300 trillion cubic feet. Then something that is so amazing to me is that from figure released by NAITI, the latest figure, it shows that in the last 4 years, 2020 to 2024, international oil companies and the Nigerian oil companies paid $1.2 billion as penalty for flaring gas. Okay, so when I did a little of conversion of that, I discovered that it's over 1.9 trillion naira that oil companies paid for flaring gas. And that shows that it becomes more attractive for oil companies to flare and pay at that rate. So it's a huge amount of money. So why would oil companies keep flaring gas and be paying penalty, despite the fact that Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians are still using firewood and using charcoal and all that to cook. So when I did a further interrogation of those figures, I discovered that according to NAITI, 5.9 gigawatt of electricity, could have been generated through the gas that are being flared. So if you want to convert gigawatt to megawatt, it will mean 59,000 megawatt of electricity. So it is ironical to note a lot of, inconsistency, if you allow me to use that word, happening within that sector. And it means actually that we are losing a lot of money. Now it comes to the role the media is supposed to play, because we need to deal with facts and figures. First of all, we all understand that there's what we call the conventional roles of the media. All the researchers and scholars of communication, agree to that, role, which is to entertain, to inform, and to educate. But going ahead, a step ahead of that role, are the role that we call the advanced role that the media is supposed to play, which has to do with surveillance of the environment, interrogating the figures that people are actually releasing concerning the gas. Now the last one has to do with the developmental role. Of course, Sahara Group has demonstrated that, but according to development media theory, which is intertwining with that role, media is supposed to be seen as a partner in every narrative. Of course, we have beautiful activities ongoing by the government, by the companies and all that. But in as much as media is not being carried along to actually be on the table, because a lot of time the communication scale has always been, top-bottom communication. A lot of time people will just talk to the media, this is what we are doing, this is not what we are not doing, and expect, media to now be a partner in that, drive. So, as Sahara Group is doing a lot, at least with this that we have been able to see, this Asharami 2.0. But I think Sahara should keep that up, while other companies should emulate Sahara in that. So to now end it, I think the media is playing those roles that I've just highlighted. But we all need to just see one another as partner in this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adela. And you're very correct. I mean, we're all partners in this. The media, the energy companies, government, the investors. We're all partners towards achieving Africa's sustainability journey or sustainable journey. We are partners towards trying to develop the country and trying to develop the continent. And I think that brings me to my next question for Ijeoma. And this is speaking a lot more on regional integration. And I think Maria also sort of touched on that when she said, which was speaking about how if there is a war, how exactly is a country able to just sort of sustain its energy supply. So regional integration, energy security, touching a bit of that. The other thing I wanted to just highlight before I ask the question is, yes, we've talked about how gas, or Africa, has abundance of gas reserves. But you know, one of the things is, I mean, the gas is not distributed evenly. Some places have more gas than others. Some countries have more gas than others. And to ensure energy security in Africa as a whole, that's where regional integration is required. So if you can just sort of educate us on what regional integration is and how that can be a key enabler towards driving Africa's sustainable future.
Okay, thank you, Mabula. So you're very right. So as we've already heard, so I'm going to leverage on your using of stats. So as we already heard, Africa is rich in gas. It has proven reserves of about 600 plus trillion SCOF. And you're right, Mabula, in that gas is mostly located in the north, the south, the west. So less of it in the east and in the central Africa, obviously. And so when we talk about, having energy security all over Africa as a continent, there has to be collaboration, integration necessary in order to get that gas to the less gas-rich countries. And that's where this integration is required. And we see that in the example of the Africa Atlantic gas pipeline, which is also called the Nigeria-Morocco, in which indeed Nigeria being one of the rich gas countries in Africa, from the 600 trillion SCOF, Nigeria has about 210. If you go by NMDPRA, 210 trillion SCOF of proven gas reserves. So in Nigeria constructing along with Morocco, the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline, the intention is to provide a rich resource to other parts of Africa. And you see also the examples of gas fields which are straddling two countries. So for example, Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea, which share a border, they actually have a gas field which straddles both countries. So yes, there is the need for integration in order to provide gas and other natural resources to the countries that are lacking in Africa, but there's also the need for integration where we find that these gas resources do not respect the borders. So there are gas resources which are crossing borders and there's need for an integration for us to actually tap into those resources. So for example, Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea, which I mentioned earlier, they've gone into a gas treaty and they've signed a gas sharing formula such that that gas field can be shared in terms of revenue that is being driven. And then they also have a common IOC. They have a common developer for the field that is straddling both. And then we see other examples as well. So for example, Ethiopia's hydroelectric dam is able to provide 200 megawatts of power to Kenya and is looking to provide even further down to Tanzania. And there are several other examples that we can showcase in Africa, but the intention is to ensure that we alleviate ourselves from this poverty that is driven by, energy poverty. But I also would steal from what I believe Mr. Finance Guru, what he said, that we should also consider what Donald Trump is doing. Make Nigeria great again, or make Africa great again, in the sense that we need to be self-sufficient first. We need to ensure that we have secured our energy security first. So take, for example, Nigeria and the West Africa gas pipeline, which again you mentioned. The reason why that has not been as successful as it should be is because Nigeria was not determined to ensure that our own energy security is sustained before, supplying to Ghana, Togo, Benin. So that is my response to that question. I hope I covered. I'm not sure if there was a second angle to the question.
No, you covered it, and thanks for that. Okay. Hi, Rotimi. I'm here again. Okay, so you already
Good to have you back.
You already sort of touched on how gas can support small and medium-sized enterprises, right? When you were answering the previous question. So for this question, what I just wanted to ask you is, while gas is supporting small and medium-sized businesses, while it's helping to reduce poverty, how exactly can we ensure that accessibility, or rather affordability and access, is not left behind for the everyday person? Because to be honest, those are the people that need the power the most.
All right, thank you for that question, Mobala. I think I sort of mentioned it earlier that gas is truly one of the easiest energy to scale up in terms of delivery to the last mile, and it has the flexibility also of being delivered through various sources. We talked about pipeline being the most easiest form of distribution strategy, but we've also talked about trucking. And we've also talked about other even conventional things like having mobile stations, such that you can just move around in the truck and fill your LPG rather than carry your LPG from point to point. So all of these options will create accessibility. On the flip side, in terms of power generation, all right, you see partnerships with mini grid and distribution companies. You see partnership with gas to power companies like ourselves and existing distribution companies like we have with PHED, creating a niche within an underserved environment of theirs to ensure that they can give them uninterrupted power supply of an average of 22 hours a day. So by creating that uninterrupted access through all the various options and channels, using gas as the pivot to do that, that basically will guarantee stability. To ensure that you are creating other broader opportunities that will inadvertently reduce poverty. So yes, the options are available. We just have to find a way to unlock the finance, make it bankable, like Mobalaji said, all right? And once we can do that, we will enjoy the economy of scale of making it affordable. I hope I've been able to answer the question.
Yes, you
Thank
have.
you.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much, Rotimi. All right, so now back to Maria. So also, when you were answering your previous question, you already sort of touched on energy security, right? And how gas will sort of help to drive that. And I mean, I think the other thing that sort of stood out as people were speaking is the fact that this requires a lot of investment. So as we are making investments today, how do we ensure that, I mean, whatever infrastructure is put in place today, how do we ensure that it also meets like our long-term goals, our long-term dreams, our long-term aspirations as a country and as a continent?
Okay, so that question, I think, really has been answered. We just need to go back to our gas master plan. It's there, the blueprint is there. It's how do we then execute these things? How do we follow through? How do we have that discipline as a nation to do the things that we need to do? So it's not that we don't know what to do. It's not that we don't know what we need. All the infrastructure that we need for, the domestic market to be stable, the infrastructure that we need to ensure, regional trade, regional stability, it's all there. Everyone has spoken about, the various pipelines in place. You have the WAGP, you have the Nigeria-Morocco pipeline. That Nigeria-Morocco pipeline, I mean, there are like 13 countries along that pipeline route where all this gas can go. The domestic market, you have a completely underserved side of the country that cannot be reached, So all of these things, we know what to do, but we need to just have that. We need to have that discipline as a nation. We need to be serious about our future. We need to be serious about these plans that we have for ourselves and, basically just follow through. So the infrastructure is, obviously one of the big things. But then you also have issues like pricing. The price needs to be, cost reflective. Now, it's not even so much so that the gas price is too low. There are also just other unseen costs that, upstream producers are dealing with, whether it's, losses along the pipeline. Everyone talks about losses in oil, that's the one that we know vandals are stealing oil. But it happens in gas. But it's not because vandals are breaking into the gas pipelines or stealing. But we don't have accurate metering. We don't know who's injecting what, who's taking what. At the end of the month, we're here fighting. My gas, I put in 100 million scop. Why am I getting 80? You have like all these issues. You have, now the tax, we're trying to like streamline the tax, But you had like issues of like multiple fees, double taxation, the unseen like community costs and other costs that you have to bear. And by the time you load the cost of doing business in Nigeria on top of your actual infrastructure cost and your actual development cost, it becomes a bit ridiculous, you know. So we have to, because at the end of the day, we don't want the gas price to be, you know, so high that it now becomes unaffordable. So we have to find how we're going to fix these issues, these, you know, little foxes that eat at, you know, the efforts that we're putting in. We have to find a way to solve all of that. And then also, you know, you look at the amount of gas that, you know, is being flared. Again, it's not because companies just sit down and they just want to burn. It's money that you're burning. You know, apart from the fact that you're polluting the environment, all the other, you know, environmental issues that flaring gas comes with, you are throwing away your money. And nobody wakes up and decides that I want to throw my money away today. But again, when your gas is stranded and there's nowhere for it to go, let's say you're just producing 5 million scoff of gas. On 5 million scoff of gas, can you build a whole pipeline and say you want to build a pipeline to take 5 million scoff of gas from here to there? But if you had the existing infrastructure and you just had to link into one existing pipeline that is already there, you know, it becomes a lot easier to, I mean, but flaring, I think it's about 270 something million scoff of gas per day. Rotimi here can tell you what he can, if he saw 1/4 of that gas, he can tell you what he would do with all that gas, you know. So we have the answers, we know what we need to do, we have the resources, we know where we need to invest into, we just need to have that discipline as a country to pursue those plans.
All right. Thanks a lot, Maria. And then I will then go to Mr. Abel. I'm going to touch on what 3 of the panelists have said. So first is Rotimi saying that he wants energy to be more affordable, or power to be more affordable to the everyday person. And then I have Maria saying that the cost of gas is is too low, or can be improved. Maybe let's not say too low, can be improved so that it helps to improve their own financials, their own economics. And then I'm also going to touch on what Dr. Adela also said about partnership with government, how they need a bit more. Partnership with companies, partnership with governments. Journalists needs to be carried along from the beginning, so they're able to tell that story effectively. So my question to you, Mr. Abel, is, I mean, what are your thoughts, what are your comments on this? So if you can just sort of shed some light as to what sort of government and ministry is doing on some of these topics.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I sat beside the gentleman for finance. Recently, I attended a summit, and I sat through like 9 sources of how to get money. And so that's very important. She spoke about some of the things about gas master plan and the rest of them. So the questions are: number 1, energy affordability; second is cost; and the third one is partnership.
Yes.
Let's talk about affordability. Economics 101, demand, supply, volume of demand, volume of supply, and the rest of them. If I have plenty, the cost is going to be driven down. And somebody talked about optimization, which is how is it really going to sustain us? 3 major sources of where we put our gas into: the international, which is LNG; the regional, which is the West African gas pipeline. And so for affordability, one of the things we've done is, if you look at, let's draw the LPG side of things. Get plenty into the country. I've seen the Honorable Minister have engaged producers. We're not exporting this for now until we get this, and everybody's quite aware of this. And we've had some, we've engaged in upstream companies. There are some, I can't sit here and start designing or tell you about the inner stories, but a lot of you know about some of the things about blending, or where we don't have the right quality in the country, matching orders have been given to them to ensure that that mixture of LPG between propane and butane, it's made available for the domestic market. So if you have that, remember economics 101, the demand or the supply availability. Availability will bring down affordability. There's no doubt about that. Then that's cost. The same questions will go for cost and energy availability. One of the things I noticed we've not talked about is the Section 52 of the PIA, which is the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund. And the doctor was talking about, flaring, flaring, flaring. You've got to see a scenario where I want to put up, and that's, Sahara is quite familiar with that. I want to put up a gas plant. I want to put up a processing facility. I've got to go through the various engineering phases. If I'm going to build a platform or a pipeline to deliver this gas, apart from sourcing the funds, that front-end engineering portion takes me a while. I'm going to gather data. I'm going to put through from environmental data, key that data in, and take a major decision that will activate the EPC, engineering, procurement, construction. That's an FID. It's a point of no return. I can gather data, gather money, and do those preliminary things. Concepts, I select the concept and move on. But when I take that FID, we are really going. That means it's bankable. I had people talk about bankability around here, and that's why I asked. None of us have really mentioned that midstream, downstream gas infrastructure fund, which provides, I think the first one was about 122 billion into the industry. That provides, the second one was, I think, 160 billion naira, which goes on to fund infrastructure gap. Within this room, we all accept that there's an infrastructure gap. So that brings infrastructure gap, that comes in. The bankability of your project gives you, makes way for you to access that fund. That fund is not in a way of come take money and do it whatever way you want. Government is actually sitting with you and going through the process that this is a bankable project. Remember, the midstream, downstream gas infrastructure fund is for the infrastructure processing and distribution and the necessary the depth of infrastructure to fulfill, to come and support that. Now, that said, that project is bankable, the government comes in and sits with you. With respect to flaring, which is also another thing he raised, we can, pardon? Yeah, with respect to flaring, you remember the domestic gas supply and pricing regulations, 2018 or thereabout was talking about $2 or so. Today it's about $3.50. No sane person, upstream operator, will want to pay that amount of money. That's not, so when we say it's, we've got to be a bit careful. Remember, I've just spoken about what it takes you to, if you want to put an LNG plant today, you remember it's going to take a while to get that and get through those processes. We won't sit down to engineer it. But similarly, the NUPRC will not give you a field development plan to go ahead without a comprehensive gas monetization option. I'm glad we have you, the journalist, who will tell our story outside. So that field development plan will not be approved without a comprehensive gas monetization or utilization program. I'm sure you'll bear witness to that. So that from an upstream perspective stands out. Then go forward. So for the midstream processing, so the government is coming with the gas, midstream, downstream gas infrastructure fund, which intends to support that portion of that challenge of we don't have the processing capacity, we don't have infrastructure capacity. That projects you're the economy, a lot of us here are some people, beside me is the economist and the commercial man. So we cannot fund projects that are not bankable. So the necessary economic parameters are put together, your payout time, your net present value, for whatever you're going to do to assess the fund. So there's going to be availability of gas coming in. And remember that part of that money is funded from flare sources. So a lot to block flaring has been put in place by government and it's being followed. She kept talking about the gas master plan. If you go back, 2006, 2007, you're looking at about 40-something%. I think it's oscillated 45 and so on. Today, it's as low as a single digit. It's less than about 9%, much, much less. I'm not, but definitely it's less in the single digits for flaring in the country. So that's been comprehensively taken care of. Then for us to provide midstream, it's done. The midstream downstream gas infrastructure fund comes in to fund the infrastructure deficit that we have in the country. So I think I must have covered what you're talking about. So that automatically takes care of the necessary things to put gas in place. Then optimization related stories. We need Forex coming out of LNG and the regional integration you talked about. However, somebody spoke about, I need to feed my home first before start thinking of outside. That's what comes up with the domestic gas supply. It used to be supply before before the PIA came on board, and delivery obligation. So a lot's been going on. Just be a little bit patient with us, and you're going to see the benefits coming out of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ansah. Thanks for highlighting some of the things that we're working on, the plans that we are putting in place as a country to sort of push this journey even further. Once again, as I said, numbers. I'm always thinking about money, right? And as you were speaking, and also sort of tying to what Maria was saying about the gas master plan, about how we know exactly what we want to do. There are some challenges that we have. There is a long gestation period for gas projects. So speaking to the financing part, Mobolaji, what would you say would make the gas sector more attractive to financiers, right? How do we sort of strike that balance in such a way that gas investments are a bit more attractive, if it's through the financing approach or is through the policy incentives? Please just sort of help us shed a bit of light on that. Because, you know, we need the money, basically.
Thanks, Mobile. And I'm happy to be seated next to you. Because, I mean, the conversation is really enlightening. When we were speaking about challenges earlier to attracting investment, one of the things was being able to repatriate monies and all of that. So that's a key sort of concern in how you attract investment into the sector. And then on the back of that, like he was saying, to actually fund a project, the project needs to be bankable at a minimum. And the cost of getting that project to bankability is expensive as well. It's not small money and it's not cheap, even if it's a modular project. And so it was talking about proof of concept, front-end engineering design and all of that. Those and studies and all of that, those come at a cost. And the model that will fund gas infrastructure development would always, to my mind, be a blended finance model. So I am not going to put money as a commercial debt capital provider on a project that has not been proven to be bankable. So there has to be some element of concessionary financing, patient capital, government money that makes the project de-risked for private capital to come in. So a blended financing model that has concessionary financing in the first instance and then commercial financing in the second instance. Because concessionary finances is longer, it's patient capital, is cheaper, and everybody knows gas infrastructure development is a long gestation period. Look at the AKK that's been on for a while. The development period is a while. So the capital that needs to even develop the project needs to be patient. So a blended approach is one of the first approaches I'll think about. Second, I'll think about a public-private partnership, right? And again, AKK comes to mind. Government has come, NNPC has come, giving us some equity, and then we've taken some debt, right? And then the project is approaching completion, and like everybody has said, it will link Kajakuta and all of that to the north, and improving the industry access to gas and all of that. So a PPP model would work. And then thirdly, so that we don't belabor the point, concessionary financing. I think thirdly for me, or maybe thirdly and then fourthly. Thirdly, I think the capital that would develop Africa's infrastructure is local. A lot of people say, we rely on and like it's been said already, people are now focused on their own countries, and Make America Great Again is not giving you people aid. So we need to look for money locally in this continent, within this continent, to develop infrastructure, general infrastructure, and including gas infrastructure. And speaking to that, I don't want anybody to come for me, but the large local capital markets, pension funds that can fund infrastructure funds, because I don't know what the size of assets under management in the pension fund industry is today, but development financing as de-risk transactions, pension funds is patient. Because I'm 25 when I start my career, I work till I'm 60, that's 35 years of contributing that can be patient to develop this sort of infrastructure if we're being serious about it. Lastly, speaking to government coming in, government can come in because government borrows from us, right? All the bonds, the long-term bonds, that government comes to raise. Some of those instruments can be designed as a green bond, which is generic, or a climate transition bond, or a climate fund bond, or an energy transition bond, and people will invest in government bonds because government will not default on its own instrument, right? So people will invest, and that is a way that capital can be raised to actually, so the private sector has done this, and that's why I said PPP. I know some commercial institutions have raised green bonds to finance green projects, but we can do something that is tailored towards gas infrastructure specifically, and then on the back of the might of sovereignty of the federal government of African countries. And then lastly, the private sector as well. I mean, I know I've been in conversations where private entities are developing gas infrastructure, processing, gasifying, regasifying, compressing, and all of that. And credit enhancements are provided. So guarantee companies are providing wraps to bonds, backstopping those bonds so they make them more attractive and bankable. And then this sort of instruments are also mid to long term and can develop modular processing plants and modular infrastructure. And I think that's a way to look at financing gas infrastructure development in Nigeria and in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for shedding light on that, and how we can source financing and how we can create a conducive environment, right? Actually, also for financiers to be able to support that journey. So as we bring the panel discussion to a close, closing with Dr. Adeola, I want us to go back to the reason why we are here, and the reason why this session was put together, and it's really just so that we can partner with the media to be able to tell an accurate story of what we're doing with regards to sustainability. First of all, shedding light on what sustainability is as well, what it means for us as a company, as a country, and as a continent. So, and this is now leading to my final question for you, Dr. Adeola, which is just that, I mean, as Africa continues to grow, as Nigeria continues to grow, everybody's talked about all of the plans that we have. I mean, Ms. Bobalaji just finished also speaking about how people are sort of gathering funds to be able to support some of these aspirations as well. What exactly, in your opinion, what exactly does the media need to play a more proactive role, right, towards supporting this journey? I think you sort of highlighted a bit on that with regards to partnership, but anything else that you can sort of shed light on? Because I think that would be a major takeaway from this session, and I mean from this event as a whole as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. To answer your question, permit me to quickly, bring something to the fore. While preparing for this, I analyzed and interpreted data from NUPRC, NAITI, NDS, and so on and so forth. And I discovered that there is no way we want to talk about our drive as a country or as a continent to ensure that there's that gas penetration if we don't take gas flaring seriously. An interpretation of data from NAITI showed that in 5 years, despite the fact that Nigeria has improved when it comes to gas flaring, they said that at the level of gas flaring that we are now as a country, in the next 5 years, Nigeria will lose $2.29 billion, which is about 3.4 trillion naira. Then An interpretation of that shows again that if that continues at this level in the next 10 years, Nigeria is going to lose $4.58 billion, which is, 6.8 trillion naira in the next 10 years. So we have something that we need to take seriously at hand, and we all need to understand that as a fact. I agree with other panelists that have said that we have that of infrastructure and all that. No serious company will want to flare gas, despite this and that. But the question we need to know, because Nigeria is peculiar. We have been talking about, harnessing gas, use gas as transition, and we have been saying we have a peculiar situation at hand. Those companies that do not want to flare gas in Nigeria, that they are serious because they know they will lose money if they flare gas without paying in Nigeria, elsewhere they operate. Let's ask the question about their activities elsewhere. Do they, do they still flare gas elsewhere, or why are they not flaring gas elsewhere? So, aside from looking at it from the environmental perspective, we are losing money, and we are losing a lot of money. The number of people, I read out the figure earlier, just 19.4% are still using cooking gas. So over 80% are still not using the cooking gas. So we still have a long way to go. So now, for media to be proactively engaged in this, like earlier I highlighted the peculiar nature. When I was doing my PhD, my thesis focused on energy communication research. And I was able to discover some things that, some of them shocking, some of them were not so shocking again. Let me just reel out just two of them. The first one, we all know that there is, changing nature of the media. Everyone knows that. And there is an evolution of the audience. The audience we have now don't have time to read Dogo-Turenchi. They don't have time to read a lot of things. And so that is established. Another one is that newspapers editors are now becoming more indifferent to energy stories. And this is as a result of a lot of things. Number one, maybe fiscal issues. Number two, recruitment issues. The Gen Zs that we have now, we are lucky we have very experienced journalists that are helping us to drive the narrative in-house here. But as they are growing, who are those that will take over from them? Because this transition we are talking about is something that has to be transitioning as well. Okay, so the Gen Z, they don't even have time to, say they want to listen to, a lot of things that, they don't have that patience. Someone was, cracking a joke the other time and said that the Gen Zs don't even have time to resign. If they work, they don't have time to stay long. And if they want to resign, they don't have time to even draft a long resignation letter. Instead, they will say, hello, MD CEO, I'm off. And that will be the content of the resignation. So it is not only within in the newspaper or newspaper, we are faced with that challenge as well. So those are the things that, trying to paint the vivid picture of we are to partner in driving this narrative. Because if we are talking about our roles, we need to talk about the peculiar nature that we are in now. So then the second one, which is just a discovery from that thesis, is that, I think this will be very interesting to the ladies seated on the panel and even ladies here. The energy stories that you find in newspapers, but I used 7 years to content analyze 4 newspapers, the Punch newspapers, Daily Trust newspapers, Niger Delta Herald, and Business Day newspapers. We discovered that according to her, any stories sourced from energy stories sourced from female, that you say, okay, something happened and the person that says so, according to her, is just 6%. 6%. So what that will mean, and these are the people that are using charcoal firewood. They don't have the voice in the media. So it is a peculiar situation we have in the country. So now to talk about being more proactive in challenging this. The first step, which I know that journalists seated here and elsewhere, are doing, is what we call, the door breaking or fence scaling. one challenge we have in the country is that there is no, maybe until recently, no data. People hide data. Government officials hide data as if it is something that, why would the journalists or the media be a partner in driving this narrative when you don't volunteer data? In some instances, it is almost always so difficult to get those data. And in some other instances, when you get that data, you will see data from agency A of the same government, different from data from agency B. I have an example. While I was doing my research, I discovered that the data, gas flaring data that NOSDRA gave for 2023 is different from gas flaring data NAIT gave. So, and this is, a media that is supposed to now try to, so when you don't have that, how do you drive that narrative? It's tough. So in scaling through that challenge, that is why you see journalists, scaling the fence and breaking the doors. When that data doesn't, we don't want to volunteer that, and we know that that data exists, they go extra mile to get that data. And how do we do that? We do that through cognitive dissonance. As we are seated now, we know that in every organization where they are auditing that data, there is always some, management staff that is not so comfortable with organizational structure or whatever they are doing. And we become friends with that. As journalists, most of our friends are the labor union leaders. Anytime they call them to come and eat on the table, we know one day will come, they will not call them to come and eat on the table. And those, when you are not eating, you will be able to talk. So, in that aspect, we are trying to, and I know that that's what we are doing, scaling them. When they don't volunteer data, we will go extra mile to get that data. And that is the way, because where it is at the back of all our minds that we all want to ensure that Nigeria gets it correctly, particularly when it gets to gas, as a transition for. The second one is the and then what question. Of course, even when that data is available, we need to ask the and then what question. Okay, so Nigeria fled, okay, Nigeria has 206 trillion score of gas, in its reserves. And then what when over 80% of Nigerian women are still using charcoal and firewood? So by asking the and then what question, it will help us to properly project the narrative in the way we are supposed to project it. The third one is to be heavy on evidence. Of course, I know one of the reasons a lot of people, are so scary. I mean, okay, maybe they feel so scared. Let me use that to, befriend journalists, is because they know that every journalist that knows his onion will doubt everything. And you will not blame them. There is a scholar, her name is Elizabeth Newsman. She was the one that came up with a spiral of silence in journalism and communication. What she says is that if you are a journalist and someone, even if it's your mother, comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm your mother," just say, "Thank you so much, but an evidence will not be a bad idea." Of course, that's to show that you doubt almost everything. And if you doubt almost everything, that will, help in being proactive, in ensuring that, we get things right and we drive the growth correctly. And then the last one, humanization of reports. Okay? Of course, if they say we are losing so amount, like the figure I just rolled out, we try to humanize it. And by humanizing it, if it is a trillion naira figure that they say we are losing, and you know that if some readers are already even tired of listening to figures. But tell them how many hospitals that amount can build. Tell them that Nigeria is flaring so number of hospitals. Tell them that Nigeria is doing this. And so with that, by humanizing those stories, you get to that narration or that narrative, properly perspectivized. And lastly, and it's to ask about when should we do it. The Asian philosophers, will say that at all time, the best time to plant a tree is the last 10 years. And the next best time is now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adeola. As you were speaking, I could feel the passion in your voice. And I think, we started this session highlighting how we are passionate about what we do. We are passionate about bringing energy to life responsibly. And everybody on this panel is passionate about Nigeria, is passionate about Africa. And that's why conversations like this are very, very important. So I just want to thank you for your comments. I also want to thank everybody on the panel for their comments as well and their contributions. I, for one, I'm a bit more informed than when I started, so I thank you for that. And I hope that everybody in the audience is a bit more informed as well, so thank you. We'll now just quickly open the panel open for questions. We'll just take 3 questions, so if we have anyone that has any question, you can just raise your hand. Okay. So we have a question. Okay. Is anybody? Thank you. So if you can just start with a quick introduction and then your question, please. Thanks.
My name is Nasser Agbalaya, Team Lead Business Desk, New Central TV. My questions goes to the Honorable Rep of the Minister. Now, we know that crude oil is sold to refineries in Naira. Is there a reason why that is not happening in dollars? And everybody use gas here. I assume so. So do we make gas cylinders to actually reduce the overhead cost of this? Do we make gas cylinders in Nigeria? Still, that goes to the minister's rep and whoever can assist in answering that. Thank you.
Well, my name is Success Wogu. I'm the energy editor of New Telegraph newspaper. Mine is not really a question, but a comment. I like to make this quotation. If you see something, say something. This is the problem some of us have in trying to educate the people. I want to bring it to the front burner that many people, prominent people, even stakeholders in the industry are reported. They are afraid. And now when a journalist comes to you and wants information and you're not bringing it, journalists have not become spirits. So how do we know? So we want to ask for further clarification, for further enlightenment, for clear presentation of facts so that journalists will serve you well. In that note, I want to thank Sahara Group for this insightful period where we have been able to be trained more and given opportunity to speak on the energy sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bashir, we'll just take one more question so we can close the panel session.
All right, thank you. My name is Oluwatobi Odeyinka. I write for Africa Oil and Gas Report. So I want to talk about gas to power and particularly as it relates to some of the operations of Sahara Group. And I'm happy that the CEO of FIPL is here. I'm sure you'll be able to answer my question. My question is about generation capacity of, let's with Egni power plants that has a nameplate capacity of about 1,300 megawatts. But according to data from NERC, I'll be quoting the last quarter for 2024, which is the last available data. The available generation capacity of Egni power plant is less than 50%. And so it's doing about 600 megawatt, 500 to 600 megawatt. And so what exactly is the problem? Is it a problem of gas supply from escravos, or it's about debts or remittance from the federal government? So I want to know, is it a gas problem? And I should also mention that Transamadi, which is operated by FIPL, is also doing very poorly. Virtually all the gas-fired power plants in Nigeria are doing very, very poorly. Majority of them are doing below 50% generation. And Transamadi is doing less than 10%. So what exactly is the problem with that? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Sopruchi Onwuka. I'm the managing editor for Oracle Newspapers Limited. And I have a follow-up question to what my friend from Africa Oil and Gas Reporter just said. We have a burden in the industry, especially in the government's gas to power program. And where the finance man has told us that we have every project needs to be bankable. It has to make returns from the market for it to be bankrolled. And we have a government program that is poorly performing. So this question, I'm directing it directly to Sahara Group, which has investment arms across the loop. Can we just share your own experience as an operator that begins from gas to the downstream power market? So what is your experience with this debt burden or liquidity squeeze in the gas to power program? Then I want to also get a little clarification from the representative of the minister. Some of us have stayed for some time in this bit. We have seen associated gas fiscal frameworks. We have non-associated gas reforms act. We are seeing gas master plan, gas revolution. We are seeing national gas policy. We have now decade of gas. And the pace of progress in terms of expressing some of these policies into actionable programs that give us palpable solutions are not there. And I just want to see, most of the industry players we speak with say that they don't have access to assets. So if somebody has actually demonstrated proof of concept for a project that is actually bankable, and he doesn't have access to assets, even though we have a national gas flare commercialization program, and people who have capacity don't have a hand on those gas, and some of these licenses were given to people who are sitting on them. Is there any way that thing can be actually revisited and readdressed, that people who have capacity are given opportunity to help you realize these goals? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll just quickly go through the questions. So the first one was for Mr. Abel, just a quick recap. A summary of the question, it was first about why crude is sold in Naira, and that was the question. And they had also requested for information on if we make steel gas cylinders in Nigeria. So I think that was the major question for Mr. Abel.
Wow. The first one talks about sales of crude in Naira and the rest of them. I came here to represent the Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources Gas, and not the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Oil. So I'm not being evasive, but I'm just trying to be as responsible as possible. So with respect to gas cylinders being made in Nigeria, the beautiful one was talking about MDGIF, which is gas infrastructure, pushing this down to make availability and the rest of them. There's a team that, I've forgotten it, I think it's Ron Gas, so I'm not so sure. I don't know what phase they are with respect to that. So that in Nigeria is taken seriously. I don't know what, I haven't read the report or where they are today, but the NCDMB, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, has taken this seriously, as well as the MDGIF, or Section 52 of, in order to get this production in country and make it available. That definitely will affect the prices of LPG and gas and deliveries. The last question, somebody spoke, so I can take the questions that concern me, both of them, was debt burden, liquidity, and ACFA. That's the Associated Gas Framework Agreement and the rest of them. A decade of gas. A decade of gas, you could also look at it as, then he talked about Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program. They gave licenses to people and so on. Yeah, you're right. We gave 49 flare sites to 42 companies. They are at various phases. So the NUPRC will sit as an agency of government. Remember, the PIA comes about drill or drop. So you're right. There's that's the spirit of the drill or drop, is the PIA. So you don't have access to these assets. Remember, it was a competitive bid. It went through various processes. I actually sat in representing the head of the DPR at that time. We drew up those framework and all that happened around it. But once it's thrown up, NUPRC inherited that, and they've gone through the processes of giving out 49 flare sites to 42 companies. A lot of them are at various phases of development. The NUPR is Section 102 and to 104 of the Act. I think that's what it was. And it was actually built on, I think, Section 34(1) of the Petroleum Act of 1969. So everybody, and I saw the passion that came from Doctor on this side about gas flaring. And I'm so glad somebody brought in the NGFCP, Gas Flare Commercialization Program. So final drive to push this to zero flare, routine flaring, is the Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program. So yes, there is evaluation of those activities so far. They've got the necessary parameters to tick the boxes. So there's a checkbox and they are being engaged. So whoever has not done the right thing, I think NUPRC is working on that. The NUPRC is an agency of the minister, government, which reports to the minister as well. So yes, a lot is going on, and it's also based on the drill or drop spirit of the PIA. So assets that have not been fully, or they've not developed, they gave them the necessary things to do to meet those obligations. If they don't meet them, the NUPRC will take the necessary action in order to sort that out. And somebody talked about the decade of gas. Decade of gas, yes, it's how do we drive it? It also starts, the summary of all what we're talking about is, yes, we have the gas. Yes, you need the infrastructure. We cannot flare gas. We need to price it appropriately. All that comes together. Oh, what do we do with things like PSC and the necessary economic models to develop these things? All that is known. Knowledge-wise in Nigeria is not a problem. As we sat there, the story was follow it through. Yes, the proactive nature of the NUPRC is working on both flare-related issues as well as the management or development of the necessary assets that has been given to them, be it a flare asset or a bid round for the asset itself. Thank you very much. That should answer that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abel. So I think the next question was for Rotimi, and the question basically spoke to. Okay, yes, please go ahead, Ijema. Ijema wants to add some context on LPG cylinders.
Yeah, just to add to what Dr. Abel mentioned. So in country Nigeria, we have quite a few companies that are actually manufacturing LPG cylinders. So one will be Techno Oil. So Techno Oil, in 2020, they commissioned a 5 million cylinder manufacturing company in Lagos. You have Zen, you also have Rongas, you're right, sir. So Rongas, in partnership with the government, is also constructing an LPG manufacturing factory. So yes, we have that capacity in country and it is happening. Thank you.
I hope you will help me too.
All right, thanks, Ijoma. So, Rotimi, your question, it related to the disparity between the nameplate capacity of the generating plant and the actual generation of the plant. And he had mentioned that it wasn't just Egbe or Transamadi, it's something that has been noticed across power plants. So just to speak on that.
Sorry, I can't remember your name, the reporter from African Oil and Gas Report, correct? But somehow you've answered the question, but you know, I'm a bit of a storyteller, so let me tell you a story, all right? So African Oil and Gas, assuming is an oil and gas PLC that produces 1 liter of gas per day, takes it to Mobolaji Street to sell at maybe 10 naira. When you get to Mobolaji Street to sell, you are only able to sell at 5 naira. Your own cost of production is about 7 naira. But you keep going back, hoping at some point in time, the pricing will meet up with your projected original selling price of 10 naira. So you sold for roughly 10 days. You have basically a gap of 50 naira on your hands. At some point, your production is going to dwindle, whether you like it or not. But you still have fixed costs to maintain. And again, luckily for you, the person who provides you with your feedstock somehow has a Nigeria first motive. So he's not collecting money from you up front. So you're able to run that shenanigans for a while. But there comes a time when you cannot continue to run like that. And maybe you will now start going once in a week because you do not have the money to pay back to the man who is financing you. Or maybe the person who is giving you the raw material has also decided, I'm not going to give you every day, even though I like Nigeria, but I still want to survive. So I will give it to you every other day. So put the long and short of this story together is the fact that the biggest challenge in the industry today is liquidity. And it's born around quite a number of things. Yes, I agree there are inefficiencies within the system itself, but for as long as your cost of production is higher than your selling price, and you do not cover that gap, there will always be inefficiencies within the system. And you cannot drive any efficiency when you cannot create a free enterprise market system. So yes, you're right. When you say that we are not producing up to our capacity, is not necessarily because we do not have the capacity, but sometimes, yes, machines go on maintenance. And quite frankly, some machines have been overdue for maintenance that has not been done because of the same liquidity issues. But more often than not is the fact that there's a funding gap created by historical mismatch between our cost of production and actual market recovery due to the current pricing of the product we sell. So that has created a lacuna in the system. We will never be able to optimize unless we create a balance. So that's what is happening.
Thanks, Rotimi. And I think you've touched a bit on the last question, right, which was as an operator that, or as a company that operates across the value chain, is there anything that we want to share or any sort of insights we want to share on our experiences? And this was directed to Sahara. So you've touched a bit on that. I don't know if you want to add anything or if any other person has anything to add with regards to
I
our
think I'll
experience.
say something, and then Maria, I call her my rich auntie, and she knows why I call her my rich auntie, because in all honesty, Dr. Abel was with us last month when we put out another plant. This has been 2 years coming, from acquisition to transportation and also to installation. That's a 180 megawatt plant. As I'm telling you, I have no money to pay my gas man. Sorry, my gas woman. I can see the pin drop silence, yes. It's good that you feel the impact. Now, imagine what that 180 megawatts would have done to Mama and Papa Apos. Earlier on, Maria said that we have the plan. We know what to do. We just need to have the discipline to do what we need to do. I will say the mindfulness. From upstream to the last mile. There are frameworks upon frameworks that can revolutionize this country's industrialization and, of course, serious reduction, maybe not total elimination, of poverty. But unless we become deliberate and mindfulness and be disciplined with the execution of these plans, we will always have this kind of shortfalls, unfortunately. So maybe Maria can help me out.
Yeah, so I mean, Rotimi has been trying to run my company bankrupt for the last for the last 2 years because he cannot pay for gas, and we are sister companies, but I've had to tell him that I can no longer supply you gas. But at the same time, I have a challenge on my hands because I have X amount of gas to put into the market, and the companies or the kind of industries that can take up that volume of gas, really it's power companies. Okay, and then maybe like fertilizer companies and the rest. But in my axis, I'm surrounded by power companies. All of them are debtors. And I don't want to give any of them gas. But what do I do with my gas? Do I lock it up? But again, I have to be able to pay my investors. I have to be able to pay my bankers. So I'm in a dilemma as well. I don't want to lock up my gas resources. It's not even healthy for the wells. These wells that have spent how much money drilling, you don't want to shut them down. But then you keep putting the gas into these debtors' hands. And the debt just keeps piling and piling. So it's a problem for me, it's a problem for them. And it's not a problem that either of us can solve by ourselves, you know. We need the involvement of government, and to be honest, government is working towards, anyway, I mean, maybe I'll allow government to speak as to what they're doing, but we are working hand in hand with government to solve this problem.
Oh, really? Thank you very much. And I'll also reveal a secret in the open, because before we got in here, I told you what we've done to get these things paid. And the vice president on this, the minister met with, number one, the president has approved modalities on getting this paid. I'm sure some of you heard this at the conference, was it a few days ago? So that's in place to get these debts settled. And that's in place. The minister, Honorable Minister of Finance and the coordinating minister for the economy is on top of this. So I can't tell you what's been done. So everybody all the way to NUPRC has been done. And the final phase of it was, I think, a week ago or so. The Honorable Minister of State for Gas and the Minister of Finance have worked on how this is going to be settled. So that is being done. I told you more than what I'm saying right now. So we're working on it, the government at the highest level, based on the president's approval and what's being followed. And the honorable ministers are following this, and I sit sometimes beside. So a lot is being done to get this paid, and you will soon smile. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you once again to the panelists for dedicating your time, for educating us. As I said earlier, I was looking forward to this session and I was not disappointed. Also, thank you to the audience as well. Thank you for your questions. I'll just close with the comment that was made for the audience that said, when journalists are asking questions, it's really because they want to know so they can tell the story better. And that's why we're here. We are here to ask those questions. So, I mean, even to Dr. Adeola here, I mean, we support the asking of the questions, because that's how we learn, that's how we know better, that's how we educate ourselves, and that's how we work towards achieving whatever goal we've set for ourselves. Once again, I just thank everybody for joining. I thank everybody for participating and for listening. And with that, we'll just bring the session to a close. Thank you so much. We can all go back to our seats. Thank you.
Okay, a round of applause for our panelists, please. Wow, what's happening to our round of applause not sounding sustainable? Okay, so I have a few things to do here. First off, for our media partners, there will be some awards in the course of this event, so please, you do want to hang around. We're going to be getting to that shortly. Also, lunch will be served after the event, so please be patient. Very quickly, I am going to be calling on one of my favorite people at Sahara Group, our head corporate communication, Bethel Obioma, to continue this session. A round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, Mo. It's been a lovely session so far, and we're coming to the end. In another 10 minutes, we'll be done. Just to let you know, we have a couple of awards. Awards for media institutions that have led that space of sustainability reporting. So it's a way of Sahara saying we see you, we read you, we hear you, we listen to you. We're watching that space. And today is the day we'll be rewarding some media houses who have gone ahead to give us excellent sustainability reporting. But just before we go on to that, at Sahara Group, we have digital publications as we continue to press for sustainability. We do not have any paper-based publications anymore. We've moved all our publications to digital as we continue to drive sustainability. So today we're launching a brand new publication which focuses on the upstream sector. And to do that, I would invite, we have with us CEO Ikeja Electric, Folake Shoeton. Please join us. A round of applause, please, for Folake Shoeton, CEO Ikeja Electric, which is Sub-Saharan Africa's largest distribution company. Thank you for joining us. Please, Ejiro Gray, Director of Governance and Sustainability, please join us as well. Can you please bring the honors? Can we have Dr. Abel join us, please? Yeah. Can Maria as well join us? Maria of our upstream business as well, Luciano Greybell. Maria, please join us. Is Dr. Abel still around? Okay, can we then have, is Dr. Abel here? Okay, can we have the representative of Dr. Justice join us then? All right, so they will unveil the newest addition to our digital publications. Like I said, they are all digital, and you can scan the QR code to download and read. So please do the honors, help us unveil at the count of 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. And there you have it, Sahara Group's latest digital publication. It's called Green Energy. Green Energy focuses on the upstream sector, and you can scan the QR code to download the report. It brings you up to date with our activities in the upstream sector as we continue to drive sustainability. Please also join them, Loretta Egwabo and Tejumade, people who have worked very hard to produce this digital publication. Please join us. So beyond energy towards impact, Green Energy is hereby launched. Please scan the QR code to download the report. It will tell you all you need to know about our activities in the upstream sector. Now we move on to where we want to recognize those media institutions that have led the pace in terms of sustainability reporting. And I'd like Dr. Tony Udowe to please join me up here to help with the presentation of the awards. Tony, please. Tony, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ejiro, can you please join us as well? Because this has to also do with sustainability. Let's have Dr. Adeola Yusuf, the passionate, since we were giving awards to the media, let Dr. Adeola Yusuf please join us as well. Okay, it gives me pleasure. The first award will go to Asharami Award for Outstanding Sustainability Reporting. The winner, print category, we have the Punch newspapers. The Punch newspapers, can we have a representative from the Punch newspapers receive the Asharami Award for Outstanding Sustainability Reporting, print category? Now, all of our awards have been recycled from what you would call waste materials as we continue to drive our sustainability message. Find very, very remarkable awards, and all of these from debris that you would find somewhere on the streets. We've put this together, we've recycled them into this wonderful award. So congratulations to Punch newspaper, Asharami Award for Outstanding Sustainability Reporting, print category. Thank you very much. Up next, we have the Asharami Award for Outstanding Sustainability Reporting, Digital Media, and this goes to Vanguard Online. Vanguard Online. A round of applause for Vanguard Online, please. Up next, we have Asharami Award for Outstanding Sustainability Reporting, Electronic Media category. And for radio, we have Nigeria Info 99.3. Can we have the representative come pick up the award? Nigeria Info 99.3. And finally, we have Asharami Award for Outstanding Sustainability Reporting, Electronic Media category, Arise News. Thank you very much. Tony, you can still wait and help us present plaques to all our panelists, of which we have Dr. So maybe whilst you are here, please, please let's have the plaque for Adeola Yusuf, Dr. Adeola Yusuf. We have plaques for all our panelists as well for supporting sustainability. These plaques are worth over $1 million USD. Because they're recycled materials and they will be here forever. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Adeola Yusuf. Can we have Maria Luciano Gabriel come pick up your award for joining the conversation? Can we have Ijoma Isiche? Thank you for supporting the sustainability discourse. And here is your $1 million USD plaque. Do we still have Mobolaji around? Is Mobolaji still around? Who gave us insights into financing? What of the representative of Dr. Justice? Is he still around? Okay, can Dr. Abel then please come pick up? Can we have Rotimi Famoroti? Thank you for supporting the sustainability discourse. And for our MC, who helped us to manage the event More of the Most High, we call her. Please come pick up your plaque as well for an excellent job. She led us on that remarkable introduction for the keynote speaker who was ably represented. Thank you, Mo, for your excellent job. Thank you very much. And of course, our moderator, Mobolanle Adesulu. A round of applause for her for helping us navigate the conversations. Thank you so much. Okay, can we have Dr. Abel join us since the next recipient is already standing now? So, Ejiro has been leading this conversation. So thank you, Ejiro, for leading this as well. Please help us in the presentation, Dr. Abel. Thank you very much. And finally, I think so we still need you, Dr. Abel. We still need you. And finally, a little bird says, maybe I deserve an award too. So please, a round of applause for me.
It's not a little bird. It's pretty much a whole flight. Thank you so much, sir, for all you do. We recognize you constantly ensuring that the media understands everything that we do at Sahara Group.
This is for the media. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. When we set out to put this together, our plan was to make sure we had a very robust conversation and have the media involved. Asharami Square is here to stay, and next year we'll be inviting you again to Asharami Square 3.0, and guess what? It will be bigger and better. The reason being that next year, Sahara Group will be 30. So we'll be celebrating 30 years of bringing energy to life responsibly. So we're going to have this bigger and better next year, and we look forward to have everyone join us. Thank you so much, my friends, my colleagues, everyone who has joined us today. Thank you for your time. I'd say at this point, lunch is served just by outside to your left. Lunch is served. Please do sit lunch and have a beautiful rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for joining, and keep sustainability reporting excellent as always. Remember, leaving no one behind. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just look inside, say charge.